Welcome back to Only Talk Sports, where we talk sports every single day, or at least we try to. I'm Rose Jeffrey, and today we will be watching Game 5 of the Western Conference semifinals between the Denver Nuggets and the Minnesota Timberwolves. Thanks for kicking us off, Will. I usually don't even do that intro for the live streams, but since you had it in the live chat, I thought I might as well do it. But I haven't really been able to go, live for as many games this year, or I haven't been able to do as many videos lately. I'll try to keep up as many videos as possible, but the news is kind of slowing down a little bit. A lot of stuff going on right now, but I will try to cover as much as possible. But do appreciate you for being here tonight, Will. And yes, we have Game 5 of the NBA Western Conference semifinals. And both of these teams, it has been an absolute polar opposite of the last 4 games. The first 2 games, Minnesota absolutely dominated. I mean, they were just blitzing Denver. And a lot of people were like, what happened to the defending champs? What's going on with them? But now they've turned it around. Last 2 games, Denver's looked a whole lot better. So now it's back in Denver where the Nuggets lost their first 2 games. Will they lose this game? We'll have to see. But earlier tonight, we saw the New York Knicks absolutely blitz the Indiana Pacers right after you saw the Indiana Pacers blitz the New York Knicks. So the Knicks got them back, and they have a really good shot to win that series. They're up 3-2. But whoever wins this game between Minnesota and Denver, they're going to be up 3-2, and more than likely will have the inside track to end up winning the series. But it's going to be really interesting. Right now, we have a 5-4 game between the Timberwolves and the Nuggets, but I definitely can't wait to see what happens as the game progresses. Jackson is here. Appreciate you for being here, Jackson. He said, what's up, Only Talk Sports Nation? Really appreciate you for stopping by. But, man, this is going to be a really great game. This series has been fun, even though the games haven't always been super close, but we know it's going to end up culminating in what appears to be a good finish to this series. Same thing with the Pacers and the Knicks. We got a lot of great series going on. It's going to be fun. Will also said this has been a strange series where the road team has won each game of the series so far, but the Nuggets have the experience and momentum going into this game at home, and it will be interesting to see how the Timberwolves respond after the adjustment the Nuggets made, and if Anthony Edwards can get enough help. Absolutely. I mean, Anthony Edwards, it's almost like the Donovan Mitchell effect with the Cleveland Cavaliers. Donovan Mitchell can go off for 50 and the Cavaliers still lose. And ironically, the only game that the Cavaliers looked really good and they knocked off the Boston Celtics, Donovan Mitchell, he wasn't even in the game. So that's what's wild about that. Donovan Mitchell being injured almost made them look better. I have no idea why, but Mitchell has to go off for like 50 when he's in the game to really even give the Cavaliers a chance. But it's kind of the same thing with the Timberwolves. Anthony Edwards, he's a great player, and a lot of people are even saying he's possibly the face of the league right now. That's how great he's playing. Over Jokic, over Giannis, so many great players in the NBA right now. Anthony Edwards has been on a tear lately, and like I said, his stock has gone up big time in people's minds of thinking he's the best player in the NBA, but if the Timberwolves are going to be able to win the entire thing this year and knock off the Nuggets in this series anyway to have a shot to do that, Anthony Edwards needs help. He can't do it all on his own. Rudy Gobert, obviously he missed that one game because of the fact he had a birth of his baby, but that game they ended up winning. The Timberwolves won that game. So it's not like Rudy Gobert, it was a big deal or anything like that to this series with him missing that one game. Didn't come back to bite him or anything like that. But then when you talk about these past 2 games where they played Denver and lost on their own floor, Minnesota, even though Rudy Gobert, he had his defensive presence and all that, he didn't score that much. Karl Anthony Towns, he's getting in a lot of foul trouble. He's got to do a better job of staying on the floor. We know that Karl Anthony Towns likes to be aggressive, but some of his fouls are just dumb. He just reaches in, or he ends up getting in somebody's space when they're shooting the ball and picks up fouls that just are not necessary. So we'll have to see with the Minnesota Timberwolves if they can continue the streak of being able to knock off the Denver Nuggets on their own floor. I mean, it'd be so ironic if every single game in this series, the road team won. And if that ends up being the case, Minnesota will win the series because Denver has more of the home game since they have the higher seed. The home the crowd advantage is supposed to help you out. That's why when you are the better seed or the lower seed, whatever you want to call it, I'm saying the higher seed, but it's technically the lower seed since Denver's the 2, Minnesota's the 3. But you know what I mean. But in that situation, the home crowd, you get more of those games. It's supposed to help you, but it hasn't helped Denver so far. And the irony of that is that Denver normally is a fantastic home team. I think last year they had like the best record in the NBA on their own floor. So I don't know what's going on now, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens in this game. If Denver plays good again, then that just means those first 2 games, they were just in a slump. It can happen. It can happen to the best of teams. That's why March Madness is a completely different beast. When you talk about the fact that it's one game, and if you play bad, you're done. You're eliminated from that tournament. And that's why sometimes the best team in March Madness, a lot of people think that team's going to win it all. There's no way that team isn't going to at least make a Final Four run. And then they lose in the first round. It happens because you could just have a bad game. In the NBA, where you have the 7-game playoffs, one bad game doesn't wreck your playoffs. It doesn't wreck, the series or anything like that, because you can just turn it around and play better the next game. And I feel like with Denver, it could have just been a slight slump where they just weren't looking like themselves. Now they're playing better. So we'll see if they can do that again tonight. Will says Thunder Mavericks has been the best series this round. That game 4 was nuts. Yeah, the Thunder Mavericks. It's crazy to me, though, that the Mavericks are doing so well, because a lot of people have been complaining with the Mavericks that they don't have enough help around Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving's not enough. But PJ Washington, his addition has made a massive difference, because he's kind of like, he's a spark plug player that's good enough he's not a star player, but he's a good third option. He's kind of like the OG Anunoby in a way of the Mavericks right now. And that's why with the Knicks not having OG Anunoby, they've struggled a little bit, but they did look a lot better tonight, especially Brunson had a big game. They were back on their own floor. But yeah, that series has been great. And the Thunder, even though they were the 1 seed, people got to remember they're still a very young team. They're not used to this. They're not used to having all these eyeballs on them, and they have that target on their back. They were the best seed in the West, which is insane. All the great teams in the West, like Minnesota, like Denver, like even the Clippers had a lot of good games this season. And the Thunder ended up having the number 1 seed. And a lot of people said because Chet Holmgren got added to the lineup, that's why they ended up being a 1 seed. That's a big reason why. But the other players got better. I mean, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, even though everybody's talking about Anthony Edwards right now, he's playing at an all-time high level. And then you talk about guys like Lou Dort, who's a really great energy guy that just plays so hard. Both Jalen Williams are playing well. Josh Giddey is a really good player. Definitely, the Thunder are dangerous, but they're still young. That's why I feel like the Mavericks, they have a shot to win that series, because they're playing great. Doncic is fantastic. Irving's experienced. PJ Washington's added a lot to that team. And the Thunder are young, but we'll see. The Thunder can still win that series, but I agree, Will. That's been a great series for sure. Jackson says, if you love hot takes on college football, college basketball, NFL, and NBA, check out Only Talk Sports on these links at Twitter and Rumble. I definitely do have Twitter and Rumble. Appreciate the shout out, Jackson. But if you'd like to go follow me on Rumble, would really appreciate over there. I'm trying to build an audience on that platform as well. And on Twitter, I usually try to post a few times a day on various sports news going on around. But do again, appreciate that, Jackson. If you'd like to follow me on both those platforms, definitely would appreciate it. And like the stream down below, and subscribe to the channel if you are new. We are at 2,620 subs. We keep on moving up, and it's all because of your guys' support. And we're going to be live for the entirety of this game until the end. It should be a fantastic game. It's going to be a great finish to this series, it looks like, as well. Both teams tied at 2-all. But Nikola Jokic, he just tied up the game at 8-all with a nice turnaround jump shot. Now on the other end with the Timberwolves, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who is related to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Not as good of a player by far as his brother, half-brother, I think, but he is a really good player. Nickeil Alexander-Walker as well, been playing much better for the Timberwolves lately. Then over on the other end for the Nuggets, down by 3, down low to Jokic, and he is bumped down low by Karl-Anthony Towns. Towns always picking up fouls. He's got to stay composed. Can't pick up dumb fouls early in the game. Always want to save your fouls till later on in the matchup. Will says, how did Dallas miss that many free throws? I mean, I say the same thing about college teams, but they are younger, more inexperienced players still, but a lot of guys play in middle school, high school. You think they would perfect their free throw shooting, but so many college teams, like Indiana basketball, has been so bad at free throw shooting for years. So it's crazy, Will, that Dallas did miss that many free throws. I mean, they're a professional team. These guys are great shooters. It's really inexcusable. Jokic at the line. First one went in. Second one was no good. So 11-9, 2-point lead for the T-Wolves on the road. Minnesota, for whatever reason, just looking like a better team when they are in Mile High. Cat kicking over to Nickeil Alexander-Walker to Anthony Edwards, and now he's fouled driving into the lane. So definitely the Nuggets not wanting to let Anthony Edwards get easy buckets, so fouling him on that play. But still, when you have a guy that's as good of a scorer as Anthony Edwards, you don't want to put him on the line either, because putting him on the line, you see the ball go through the net, and then sometimes the rest is history. He's going to have a fantastic game once he sees that first shot go in. So Denver cannot foul him and give him a lot of opportunities at the line. Now, he has missed a few free throws. That's been like his one weakness lately, is he has missed some free throws. But still, you just don't want to give a really dynamic player any opportunities to score the basketball. Just play straight-up defense and hope for the best. But he split the free throws just like Jokic did. So it's 12-9. Timberwolves lead by 3 over the Nuggets. 7 to go in the first quarter. Michael Porter Jr. over to Jamal Murray. A lot of people have criticized Murray's play recently, but he stepped it up last couple games. Jokic on the block, driving in, turns shoulder over, Gobert, and he lays it in. That's a really good play by Nikola Jokic. 12-11, Timberwolves lead by 1 point. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, top of the key, gets a screen from Gobert, kicks in the corner to Jay McDaniels, and he splashes home a triple. 4-point lead for Denver off that 3-point attempt. That's a fantastic shot by Jay McDaniels, all set up by the good pass. Jokic down the floor. Nobody's guarding him, and he slams it home. You cannot leave the Joker with that much space up the middle of the floor. He's going to make you pay every single time. He can dribble the basketball. That's the difference between the modern NBA and the past. In the past, bigs had to be set up. Now the guys can just go down the floor and score at will. Now Towns in the corner for 3, in and out. Nice rebound for the Nuggets. But that was almost a really good shot by Towns. Good attempt. Definitely should have shot that. Just couldn't get it to fall. And then on the other end, Michael Porter Jr. knocking down a 3. Michael Porter Jr. had a really bad game a couple games ago, but he's been stepping up his play recently as well with the rest of the Nuggets players. That's big seeing him knock down that 3. Him and Aaron Gordon, when both of those two are firing on all cylinders, especially when they can knock down threes, it makes it so much easier on Jokic and Murray. Anthony Edwards, crossover dribble in the lane, goes off the glass, couldn't get it to fall, and Jokic saves it from going out of bounds. What a play by Jokic. Now he's driving in, and I think they call it a foul on Rudy Gobert. So smart by Nikola Jokic. He is attacking the bigs for the Timberwolves, both Gobert and Karl Anthony Towns, because he knows if he can get fouls on those guys, it's going to make it a lot easier for him to score at will, because they're not going to be able to defend as hard because they have a bunch of fouls on them, and you don't want to foul out of the game. So that's very smart on Jokic. Don't know if they'll be able to get both in foul trouble, but we do know that both have 1 foul. Jackson also, again, plug in my Rumble link. Really appreciate that, Jackson, a lot. Jackson says the Western Conference has been really competitive, that's for sure. I mean, the East for many years was the more competitive conference. Now it's the West. The East has a lot of good teams. The Knicks, they're really good. The Celtics, the Bucks, even though they fell out of the playoffs because Giannis and Damian Lillard were both hurt. But still, the West has more teams that are really, really good, it seems, right now, with the Thunder and the Timberwolves and the Nuggets, the Clippers, the Suns, and then the Mavericks as well. So I agree. The competition seems like it's stiffer in the West, but the East, it's not too far behind. But I think at the top, it's because the top of the East is, I think, further away from the teams below it than the West is. For 3, KCP knocking it down for the Nuggets. That's another player that you want to see get going if you're a Denver fan, because Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, he can fill it up when he's on a roll. 21-18, Nuggets with the lead. Jay McDaniels for three. He can't respond. KCP with the board. Kicks over to Jamal Murray. 4:30 to go in the first quarter. Jokic with the basketball. Naz Reid, Gardner, the sixth man of the year in the NBA, who's had an excellent season. And then KCP, right after he had a nice three, he airballs his next three. Nobody's perfect. Absolutely nobody's perfect, but man, that's ugly. That was definitely not a good shot. Anthony Edwards dribbling at the top of the key. Got Michael Porter Jr. on. That is a mismatch. If he can beat him off the dribble, he can't. Kicks to Towns, and I think he's tripped by Caldwell Pope. Caldwell Pope and Towns a little shaken up, but Towns is on the ground. Hopefully Towns is okay. If he's hurt severely, he's grabbing his knee, that is not a good sign if you're a Timberwolves fan. I don't know. Maybe he landed a little bit awkwardly on the ground, but he is clutching his knee, and that is not a good sight to behold. I mean, I think that Minnesota, can operate fairly decently well without Towns on the floor, but they need him out there if they're going to win this series. I mean, Gobert, it put a lot more pressure on him. They do have Naz Reid. I'll give him that. Naz Reid, because when Gobert missed the game because of the birth of his kid, Naz Reid really helped out in that regard, but I do think Minnesota needs Towns on the floor. It'd be a massive loss if he can't continue, but he's hobbling it out there. He's battling him. So he's going to try to play through the pain, it seems, but he might have to go to the bench for a while. I don't know. He definitely looks shaken up. Jackson Ball asked, did Jokic deserve the MVP over Luka and Shea? Appreciate you for being here, Jackson Ball, but that's a great question because a lot of people think, and you didn't mention Anthony Edwards either, a lot of people throw him in there because of the way he's playing, but Luka Doncic, the problem is that the Mavericks weren't at the top, of the standings. That really hurts Luka because, man, he's playing so well, but that's the issue. I think Shea Gilgeous-Alexander had the best case for it because of the fact that the Thunder were they were the 1 seed. They were the best team record-wise in the West. Even though the Nuggets are the defending champs, the Thunder were the 1 seed. I think Shea Gilgeous-Alexander had a case. A really good case. Then you could make a claim or a case for Anthony Edwards, maybe Luka, but like I said, Luka team was a little bit worse, not his fault. But Jokic, I mean, he was excellent. I mean, the assist numbers, averaging like 12 and a half assists per game is just unreal. But at the end of the day, I mean, I don't think it's a bad pick again to give it to him again, but there's definitely an argument for Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. Maybe his time will come. Maybe he can win it eventually, but I don't think it was terrible to pick Jokic, but I don't think it was an unanimous decision. It wasn't like, oh, this is the right pick, no doubt about it. Nobody else had a case. I give you that. I agree with you 110% there, Jackson Ball. I think that there's definitely a case for those other three, especially Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, but I don't think picking Jokic was awful either. But it is what it is. I mean, the MVP, it's not that it's not important. It is important, but at the end of the day, you can only pick one person. And there's so many guys that are elite in the NBA that it just makes it very difficult to pick between them all. And it's just tough when Jokic does so much. Passing, rebounding, shooting, rebound, just so many things that I think that's why it almost makes it a little bit easier to give him the award. But I do appreciate you for stopping by. But the Timberwolves, they have tied up the game. It's 21-all. Jamal Murray bringing the ball up the floor. 2:40 to go in the first quarter. Almost a turnover, but Murray saves it, kicks to Jokic. Over to Michael Porter Jr. Thought about kicking it to Jokic down low, but thought better of it. Now Jokic reposts. He kicks it to him. And then a block from Naz Reid. Naz Reid has been doing such a great job on the defensive end these past few games. Now he takes a three. It is off the mark, but he can make that shot. He's gotten a lot better at shooting threes. KCP up the floor to Porter Jr. Off the dribble, Porter Jr. kicks to Jokic. Jokic gets the ball, lays it in, and one. What a play by Nikola Jokic. He just works so hard down there. Whether he's going up against Naz Reid or Towns or Rudy Gobert, he just works play after play. That's a great play But there's a timeout on the floor. Nuggets lead by 2, and he'll have a free throw out of the timeout. Jackson says, don't get me wrong, I like the Nuggets, but I want to see the Timberwolves in the Western Conference Finals. Same with the Thunder. What can I say? I'm a sucker for teams that usually have hard luck. Me too. I mean, Jackson, literally, that's the biggest reason, like, why I started watching Indiana in football and basketball is because they always have hard luck. You know, I mean, sometimes you are a sucker for those teams, and I agree with you. The Thunder and the Timberwolves, both teams, their franchises had a lot of, low points. I know the Thunder, they were the Seattle Supersonics back before 2007, but I don't really think like the Seattle Supersonics, no one was really talking about them ripping up the roads. I mean, they had their moments, but then with the Thunder, once they became the Thunder, you had Kevin Durant, you had James Harden for a bit there and Russell Westbrook, but they never had, like, if Harden had stayed, I don't know if they ever won it all because we know the dynamic with all those players. It's just Harden. A lot of people just don't think he fits with a lot of players and teams and all that, but him leaving, and then it was just Westbrook and Durant for so long, and they didn't have another great player. They couldn't get over the hump. They could not win a title. And then once Durant and Westbrook got out of town, the Thunder have fallen off a cliff. But they're back now, and they got all of these young guys, which goes to show that building a team through the draft can work still. It definitely isn't a deal where you have to make trades. You have to bring in all these guys that are elite in the league and have massive contracts and then put yourself in, a little bit of a cap problem. The Thunder, they did a great job. They just started drafting all these players. They built this team. And I mean, the Thunder are so good right now, even though they're so young. I mean, they're going to have multiple years of possibly being able to win a title in the NBA. Now, whether they do that or not, I don't know. Just like with the Celtics, people are waiting for Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown to finally get one. They haven't got one yet. They're still on the younger side, so there's still time for them. But the Thunder, they got a bright future. They really do. And then the Timberwolves, yes, Gobert's older. Towns, not super young either, but you got Anthony Edwards. Naz Reid's younger as well. I mean, there's a possibility maybe in the next couple years, if everything aligns, maybe they can get a title. We'll see, though. Only one team can win it every year. So much competition in the league right now. So many great teams. Not a deal where you can say only like 2 or 3 teams have a shot to win. I feel like before the playoffs began, I think people legitimately had around 6 teams that people thought could win it all. I know, in my opinion, I felt that Denver could do it again. The Thunder was possible. I thought maybe if the Clippers stayed healthy, that there was a shot. I know it wasn't like legitimately that they were the favorite, but there was a shot if Kawhi Leonard didn't get hurt, but he didn't stay healthy. Timberwolves, maybe. I don't really think people were as high on them before the playoffs, but they've woken up people with those first 2 wins over Denver. But they got to win the series before people think they can win it all. And then obviously in the East, Boston, maybe New York. They've got some injuries right now, but they're still playing well. And then the Bucks maybe. So that was about it. I don't really think anybody thought like Cleveland or Indiana or anything like that. But still, there's a lot of good teams in the NBA right now and a lot of teams that could win every year at this point. So even though you're a great team, like with the Thunder for the next few years, are probably going to be an elite team. These guys keep getting better. It doesn't mean that they're going to win one. If I had to bet money on it, which I don't bet, I would say in the next 5 years, I think the Thunder with what they have right now will win one eventually, but we just have no idea. But the game is back on. Denver hit the free throws. It's 24-21, and now both teams are battling for the ball, and I think they call it a kick ball. So 1:58 to go. Nuggets have a 3-point lead over the Timberwolves. It's been a pretty good first quarter so far. Both teams not playing too bad on offense. There's been some lulls, but I think it's more due to the fact that the defense has been stellar on both sides. Both teams are playing hard. 1:50 to go in the first quarter. Minnesota with the ball. Nickeil Alexander-Walker kicking it over to Anthony Edwards. A lot of people's face of the NBA as of right now, the way he is playing. A lot of people still think it's Jokic and other players. Maybe Giannis. It just depends on who you think. I don't really think there is a face of the NBA right now. I mean, it isn't a deal like LeBron in his prime or Michael Jordan or even Kobe Bryant for brief. Like, there's just so many great players in the NBA right now. There's legitimately like 5 to 7 guys that you can make a case that are the best player in the league. That's why the MVP race was so debated. Looks like Christian Brown for Denver stepped on the out-of-bounds line. So the Nuggets still have a 3-point lead, but giving the ball back to the Timberwolves. You don't want to turn the ball over. You don't want to make a lot of mistakes in that regard. Got to play clean basketball. I mean, turnovers aren't the be-all and end-all. You can still win if you have like 15 turnovers, if you knock down like 17, 18 threes, if you have a great offensive game besides the turnovers. But the more turnovers you have, the better chance you do have of losing. Anthony Edwards kicks to Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and he buries the triple. We're all tied up at 24 all. 1 to go in the first quarter. The pass is almost just as important as the shot, though. Anthony Edwards, that was a great pass to Nickeil Alexander-Walker right in the shooting pocket where he can grab the ball and go up with it. If the pass is poor, makes it much tougher to make the shot. Reggie Jackson contributing for Denver. Nice shot right there, 26-24. 45 seconds left in the first quarter. Ant-Man at the top of the key. Driving in, going up with the floater, off the mark. Kyle Anderson gets the rebound. He thought he was fouled, but no call, and Denver back the other way. Jokic up the floor to Reggie Jackson again, and Reggie Jackson back-to-back layups. 4 points for the veteran off the bench. It's nice when you can get contributions from guys like that are all the way on like your 8th or 9th man off the bench. Solid play from Reggie Jackson. Cat at the top of the key. Driving into the paint. Backing down, going up with it, and he misses the shot. Jokic almost had the rebound, but the ball goes out of bounds, so it will be Minnesota basketball. Jokic almost had it. It's so tough when you're going for the ball and you got the rebound, and then you lose it out of bounds. That's got to be infuriating. Peyton Watson's coming into the game for the Denver Nuggets. He's still a young guy, came out of UCLA. Has a lot of potential still, but he's been playing a little bit more for the Nuggets. Kyle Anderson inbounded the ball to Cat, and he lays it up and in. That's a good play for Towns. He missed that similar-looking shot on the last play, but he was able to make it that time. Jokic with the ball. Up by 2 for Denver. Less than 5 seconds in the first quarter. Reggie Jackson splitting through 2 defenders, and they're going to call a foul. So couldn't get the shot off. Definitely looks like Karl Anthony Towns is okay, though, for the most part, which is big. Because I think a lot of people, for a minute there, including myself, were worried that Karl Anthony Towns might have to miss the rest of his game. I mean, he was really clutching that knee. But sometimes it really hurts at first, but then once your adrenaline comes back, you can continue to play. But then after the game, once you stop playing on and once you stop running up and down the floor, that knee's going to start hurting more again. And Karl Anthony Towns, he's going to be feeling it for the next couple of days, but it looks like he is going to be fine and should be able to play the rest of the game. So that's big for Minnesota. But Jokic missed the 3 at the buzzer at the end of the first quarter. So Denver leads 28-26 at the end of the first. Pretty nice start to the game so far. Jacob Season, appreciate you for being here. He says Luka should have won the MVP, shaking my head. I mean, again, that's what is so tough right now about the NBA, how there are so many guys that you can make a case that they're the best player in the NBA. Luka Doncic, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Anthony Edwards, Nikola Jokic. I mean, the competition, it's like razor thin. So, I mean, while I agree 100%, Jacob, that you can make a massive case for Luka or Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, I mean, it's so tough to really say either way. It really is. I think Jokic, he's just such an all-around player. He's been great for so long. I just feel like that's what makes it easier to pick him. But I do think some of those other guys up and coming like Anthony Edwards and Gilgeous-Alexander definitely had a case. Luka as well. If Luka was on a team with that, like if Dallas was better, if Dallas was like legitimately like the best team in the NBA and the rest of the roster was better, I think he would probably win. But it's just that the rest of the team drags it down. That's unfortunate. It's not Luka's fault, but there is definitely a case for him. Maybe he'll win one eventually. Will says, I agree, Jacob. Luka should have won the MVP. So we got a lot of people agreeing that Luka should have won the MVP. I did a vote on Twitter. I'm sure some of you guys that follow me on Twitter probably saw the poll, but a lot of people were voting for Luka and Anthony Edwards as well when I said who should win MVP. And that was before they voted on it. I didn't do like who should have won. I just asked, who do you think's going to win? And a lot of people felt it was going to be Luka. So, Steven Cherry, appreciate you for being here. He says, what's up, Jeffrey? Big Cat is overrated. Anthony Edwards deserves a better running mate. Well, I appreciate you for being here, Steven. It's nice to be live again. I've been wanting to do some of these games. I just haven't really had the time, but was able to fit it in tonight. And I did do the game 2 of this series last week, but now back for game 5. But I will have some more NBA live streams for the playoffs. I like doing these. They're a lot of fun. I know you guys like them as well, but I'm going to have more live streams on the way for the NBA playoffs. Don't know how many I'll be able to do, but I will be back. Try to maybe do at least one a week if possible. But do appreciate you being here, Steven. Always enjoy seeing you in the chat. But yes, Big Cat, Karl Anthony Towns is a really great player. He is a great player, but it depends on how loosely you use the term great player. If your version of great player is that like they're elite and they're like Luka or Anthony Edwards, like the top 5 to 10 players in the league. No, Karl Anthony Towns is not a great player if you're going off that, standard. But if you're going off like top 50 players in the league are great, yeah, he's a top 50 player. He's a good player, but he's foul prone. He's missed a lot of time with injuries. He's kind of like, I wouldn't say a poor man's Anthony Davis, because a lot of people feel Anthony Davis, him being fragile, he misses a lot of time next to LeBron. He's overrated as well. I think Towns is a good player, but I just think that a lot of people probably feel he's not that good because of those injuries. And plus, he is technically the second star for Minnesota, and that's why it's kind of tough for Anthony Edwards, because some games he has to go off for 40 to win because of the fact that Towns maybe only has like 15 or 20 when it would be better like if he had 30, and then Anthony Edwards could have like 25 points in a game and they could still win. But it just feels like Edwards has to have like 35, 40 points sometimes for Minnesota to win. Because we know Gobert is a better defensive player. He doesn't do as much on offense. But it's a good point, Steven. I mean, Towns, maybe he's not the best, second best player on a basketball team for the NBA. Other NBA teams have a better second best player on the team, but he would be a pretty solid, like, third best player. But, I don't know if Minnesota can necessarily afford that, but I don't really know their salary situation. But Minnesota, they've tied the game at 28 apiece. Gobert had a 2-and-1, but he did miss the free throw, which prevented Minnesota from being able to take the lead. So 11:30 to go in the second quarter. Aaron Gordon, top of the keys, back in the game after getting some rest off on the bench. Jamal Murray, top of the key, being hounded by Anthony Edwards. Murray breaking off from him, goes up with a step back 2, and he's not able to knock it down. Gobert with the board. Kyle Anderson, who has one of the funkiest three-point shots in the league, he's got the basketball. Trying to kick it down low to Gobert. He's got a mismatch on Justin Holiday, and he just barrels him over. No foul is called. Man, Michael Malone, he is furious, and he just got a technical. I kind of don't blame him, though. I kind of don't blame Michael Malone. Let's see. Is it a flop? Okay, I'm not sure. It's close. You can make an argument that Rudy there's some elbow. It could have been a charge. But Michael Malone, he does not agree. He is furious. But that's not going to help Denver's case out, because did he get 2 technicals? I saw the referee do 2 symbols. Maybe it was just 1. Now, he's still on the sideline, but he's still yelling at the refs, though. You don't want Michael Malone to get ejected. He's gonna have to settle down a little bit, but I don't blame him for being kind of mad because of the fact it did look like that should have been an offensive foul. There was enough elbow there from Gobert. But sometimes in these NBA playoff games, though, the referees, they're a little bit lenient. They're a little bit lenient on not calling fouls in certain situations because they want to let them play, and that's fine, but that also is how brawls break out, like guys getting into it because there's a lot of pushing and shoving going on, just guys getting away with stuff a little bit that maybe would normally be called. But I think that was an offensive foul, but that's my opinion. But it did not hurt the Nuggets too badly, though. Minnesota only got 1 point out of it. And Michael Malone's still on the sideline, so he did not get ejected, which is good for the Denver Nuggets. Karl-Anthony Towns, he's got 7 points right now, but he's on the bench. And Christian Braun, he knocks down 1 of 2 free throws. A lot of guys splitting free throws in this game, both Minnesota and Denver. Got to knock down your free throws. It's the playoffs. I know the stakes are big. It's tough to go up there and knock them down, but you got to make your free throws. They're free, as Michael Jordan always used to say. Kyle Anderson with the ball at the top of the key. Kicks to Naz Reid. Reid driving into the lane. And that time they call a charge. Aaron Gordon took the charge on Naz Reid. Wasn't any elbow, it didn't look like on that one, but he just barreled into him. And that one maybe could have been a block because he went to the side, but I'm okay with the charge there. He did barrel him over. But Naz Reid, he don't like the call. But, man, Gobert, he got away with more, though, man. He really knocked Holiday out of the way. But it looks like the refs probably gave him the call because they didn't want to hear Michael Malone losing it again. Jamal Murray, top of the key. Denver down by 2 after they had a 2-point lead at the end of the first quarter. Aaron Gordon thought about the jumper, kicks to Jamal Murray. Murray getting into his mid-range sweet spot, step back 2, misses the shot, and Aaron Gordon, one of the high flyers in the NBA, one of the best guys at dunking the basketball in the league. He slams it home off the miss 2 from Jamal Murray. What a play. 31 all. Tie game. Anthony Edwards, top of the key. Kicks to Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Now back to Towns, who's in the game again. Towns gets blocked by Michael Porter Jr. What a block. And then almost a turnover by Denver, and it is a turnover. Anthony Edwards with the steal, going down the floor, stops. Looks like it should have been a travel, but the NBA never calls travels. And then the ball is deflected out of bounds by Christian Braun. That's a very good defensive play by Christian Braun. Still all tied up at 31. But they're showing the Aaron Gordon dunk again. You cannot ever leave Aaron Gordon without boxing him out because he is going to come out after that basketball and dunk it back home. It's always good offensive rebounds anyway. Rudy Gobert down low. Kicks outside to Jay McDaniels. And another offensive foul on the Minnesota Timberwolves. After Michael Malone lost his mind on the Rudy Gobert play, they've been calling the offensive fouls now. And that one, I mean, it looked like Jay McDaniels again went off to the side a little bit. But, I mean, again, barreling him over, it could be a charge, but some of those are very tough. That one could have possibly been a block. Christian Braun driving in, gets stopped by Kyle Anderson. Jamal Murray with the basketball, splitting the double team, going up with it. And a turnover again. I don't know if that was a shot or classified as a turnover. I don't really know, but Murray went up with it and he lost the ball. Now you've got Karl-Anthony Towns going on Aaron Gordon, and they just called another offensive foul. Is that an offensive foul? That is not an offensive foul, man. Aaron Gordon was leaning. Towns went off to the side. Aaron Gordon didn't even square his body. He didn't even square his body. That is not an offensive foul. That is a block. Now the Minnesota Timberwolves coach is getting upset. He's not getting a technical, but oh boy. Porter Jr. for 3 is off the mark. Towns with the board. We're still all knotted up at 31. The offense is dried up for both teams. Kyle Anderson with the basketball, top of the key. Kicks to Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Now to Towns. Back to Walker. Over to McDaniels. 5 on the shot clock. In the lane, McDaniels going up with it. His shot's off the mark, and Holiday saves it from going out of bounds. Good save by Justin Holiday. Jamal Murray drive it in. Kicks to Porter Jr., and his 3 is off the mark. But another offensive rebound for Denver. Aaron Gordon yet again. Aaron Gordon with the spin move. But he gets stripped from behind by Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Now Kyle Anderson with the basketball. Almost traveled. Of course, they're not going to call it, but Christian Braun with the steal. Driving into the lane. Braun goes up with it, and he missed the layup. Good defense by Alexander-Walker. Where is the scoring? No team is scoring at all. No field goals from the Timberwolves in the last 3 minutes. Rudy Gobert with the ball. Kicks out to Anderson. To Towns for 3. Towns is off the mark. And then a rebound from Holiday. Now Porter Jr. up the floor. Aaron Gordon back to Porter Jr. Gordon down low. Murray for three. It looked like he was going to shoot it, but he passes it down low. And now both Gordon and Towns are on the ground fighting for the basketball, and there's a tie. So much action, and there's no scoring. Both teams are playing hard. I mean, you can't say anything about either team's effort in this game. Both teams are playing really hard, and that's why there's been a lot of turnovers, because both teams are defending at a high level. And there's also been a lot of plays that you could say should have been fouls that weren't. And now they're starting to call a lot of offensive fouls on the Minnesota Timberwolves, which is frustrating. Chris Finch, the coach for the T-Wolves, but Michael Malone lost it on the one with Rudy Gobert. But it's been a crazy first 15 minutes of this game. Both teams playing hard, but the offense, while at one time was pretty decent in this game, there's no points being scored. But you don't always have to have offense for it to be a fun game or an entertaining game. I like defense as well, but you definitely don't want it to be where there's no scoring at all. Somebody's got to score eventually. Referees finally teed up the ball, and the Timberwolves ended up with it. No points in almost 4 minutes for Minnesota, which is so rare for an NBA team to have that long of a drought. Denver hasn't been much better. Jay McDaniels kicks outside. Timberwolves knocked down a two. That's a really good shot right there. 33-31, 7:10 to go in the second quarter. T-Wolves 3 of 7 from the field in this quarter. Denver Nuggets 1 of 7. Jokic kicks to Jamal Murray. Murray gets a screen from Jokic. Like he had a little bit of a lane, but Gobert recovered. Now Jokic down low, and he lays it in. He's looking for a foul on the top of his head, but he's not going to get it. That's a great layup by the Joker. 33 all, 6:40 to go in the second quarter. Jokic is 14 points, a quiet 14. Feels like he doesn't have as many, but he's playing well. Anthony Edwards kicks to Karl Anthony Towns. Back to Edwards. 5 seconds on the shot clock. Edwards off the dribble. Back to Cat. Thought about the three. Kicks in the corner. And the Timberwolves missed the three. Monte Morris couldn't get that shot to go. Gordon with the basketball and a slam dunk from Aaron Gordon. He went coast to coast with that thing. One-hand slam. That's a fantastic play by Aaron Gordon. Such a fun player to watch. Monte Morris at the top of the key, kicks to Towns. Towns driving in, look like a push-off on Gordon, but not going to get the call. Edwards, cut off by Christian Brown. Christian Brown playing good defense. All over Anthony Edwards on that play. A lot of guys would have gotten beat off the fake there, but not Christian Brown. But look at Aaron Gordon run the floor, man. Towns even tried to contest that thing, but he was smart. He did not foul on that play. Karl Anthony Towns, like I've said before, has a tendency to do a lot of dumb fouls, but he backed off. He contested it, but he made sure not to get the foul. Very smart. Jackson says, let's help Only Talk Sports get to 20,000 followers on X or Twitter. Appreciate that, Jackson. I just passed 10,000 followers on Twitter very recently. Appreciate everybody that's followed me on Twitter. Can't believe we passed 10,000 followers. It's unbelievable. I really appreciate that, Jackson. And subscribe to the channel if you are new and like the stream down below. I would really appreciate it. It really helps out the channel. We're getting closer and closer to 3,000 subs. We are less than 400 subs away from 3,000 subs, which is unbelievable. I would have never have thought that a couple years ago when I started this YouTube channel, but so appreciative of all your guys' support. It's been unreal, and I appreciate all you guys for being here tonight. This game, I knew it was going to be competitive and close. More than likely, when I did the Game 2 game, I thought it was going to be close and competitive. It wasn't. But this game, living up to the hype so far when it comes to being a competitive game. Maybe the offense isn't up to people's liking, but it's still been a good game. I can't wait to see what happens in the rest of the game. Steven Cherry says MVP doesn't always go to the best player. If that was the case, Jordan would have won all of them during his career. That's a great point, Steven. It's most valuable player. That's what the award is called. It's not the best player. I agree. And when you look at the award from that perspective, Jokic does so much for Denver. I mean, Denver's got a great team. They had a great team last year. They had a lot of depth. They had a lot of guys that were really good. I mean, losing Jeff Green and Bruce Brown, those were tough losses, but they still got quality depth, and they have enough solid players around Jokic that they're able to have a lot of success. But Jokic, without him, Denver, it's just a completely different team if you have like Joel Embiid on it. Not that Embiid isn't great. He's a fantastic player, but like Jokic just does so much. He makes everybody else around him better. And I feel like some of the bench players for Denver, their game is elevated so much, and people think that they're better players than possibly they are because of a guy like Jokic. He gets those guys involved. I'm not saying the other players aren't good, that they are. But I just feel like Jokic does so much for Denver that sometimes just doesn't even get, noticed or talked about. That's just the way that it goes. Nikola Jokic is an all-around player, and he does everything well. He's pretty good at defense in certain areas. I will say there are certain parts on defense with Jokic that he isn't elite at. He can get beat at times, and sometimes down low, he can let guys score easily. I remember DeAndre Ayton, kind of having his way with him a couple years ago for the Phoenix Suns down low. But still, overall, Jokic is a good enough defender. But then offensively, there just are so many things that he is good at. It's just unreal. Like, if he was just, a good player down low and he could still pass and rebound, do all the things that he does and run the floor, he'd be fantastic. But then he can also step out and shoot threes. He's just an all-around player, averaging as many assists as he does. That's why I feel like he's just got such a case, for most valuable player because of all that he does for the team and makes the team better. Should he have won MVP? Again, I'm not saying that. There were other arguments for other players. But when you look at it from that regard, like you said, Steven, it makes sense why he won the award. Minnesota tied it up at 35 all, but then on the other end, Christian Brown with a layup. Again, giving good minutes off the bench for Denver. A very confident player. Only been in the league a couple years. Came out from Kansas. Very solid player. But 37-35 Nuggets. 5:30 to go in the second quarter. Gobert kicks to Towns. Towns with the step back, and he gets the friendly shooter's touch. 37 all. Jokic bringing it up the floor. He's got Towns guarding him. Towns is 11 points. 5 of 10 from the field, 1 of 3 from 3. Having a pretty solid game. Looks like they just called a foul on Towns. And that's one of those fouls right there that Towns picks up. So it's just not smart. Like, I know you're trying to guard Jokic. You're trying not to, give him any inch. You don't want to give him any space to score. But he was just a little bit too physical there, banging into him, and now Towns has 3 fouls. It's just dumb. It's not a smart play, not a smart foul by a guy that's been in the league for a while. He's more of a veteran player, just not smart. Now he's on the bench with 3 fouls, and Minnesota's going to have to go with Naz Reid more and Jay McDaniels. But Denver misses the shot there. Minnesota back the other way. 4:50 to go in the second quarter. Ant-Man top of the key. Trying to go off the dribble, get past Gordon. Kicks over to Rudy Gobert. Gobert, nowhere to go. Back to Edwards. Edwards with a mid-range jumper, and it's off the mark. He tried to go glass, did not work. Aaron Gordon, back the other way. Looking for somebody. Finds Christian Brown, and Christian Brown with a nice 2 and 1. What a smart play by Christian Brown. Looking like a veteran out there. He could have just went up for that shot, but instead he took the contact, which is always smart. Always smart. Always do a head fake. Enough players out there do not use the head fake. If you head fake and then go up with it, your chances of getting an and one or just getting fouled are so much greater because guys are going to jump off the first fake. But Christian Brown, he did miss the free throw, though. That's a big miss. Denver's missed a couple free throws, so has Minnesota. Especially if this game is close down the stretch. We'll have to monitor the free throw line to see if that comes back to bite either team. Anthony Edwards, off the dribble. What a steal, though, by Christian Brown. Playing such great defense on the All-Star. KCP, kicking to Reggie Jackson. Down low to Jokic. Jokic, nice pass to Aaron Gordon. What a play. When you got a guy like Aaron Gordon that has that great of verticality, man, just give him the ball. What a play. Gordon's got 6 points, 4 boards. Jay McDaniels thought about the three, trying to shake Gordon. Kicks back up to Monte Morris. 5 seconds on the shot clock. Morris driving into the paint. Goes up with a floater. Nice play by Monte Morris with the shot clock going down. 3:40 to go. And the second quarter, Jokic bringing the ball up the floor. I mean, we're just used to seeing Jokic do it, but it's still remarkable just to see him bring the ball up the floor. Christian Brown misses a three. Had a pretty good look. Nice pass from Jokic. Just couldn't capitalize on the wide open look. Monte Morris to Edwards. His three's off the mark. What a one-handed board by Gobert. But a turnover. Nice steal from Denver. Jokic to Christian Brown for the slam dunk. Christian Brown giving such good minutes. Off the bench. What a pass from Jokic. Timeout on the floor. Christian Brown's played 12 minutes in this game, and he's got 7 points. But it's more than that. His defense has been stellar. And the Denver crowd is on their feet. Alfie's here. Shout out, bro, from Philippines. Appreciate you for being here, Alfie. Nice to see you in chat. He says, I am back. Definitely nice to see you. Appreciate everybody for being in chat tonight so far. We should have a really good finish to this game. It seems both teams are playing really hard. Definitely don't want to miss this, and do appreciate if you guys do stop by. But appreciate that, Alfie. Will says, love 2012 Thunder team, but they could. I love the 2012 Thunder team, but they couldn't stop LeBron in the finals. Broke my heart. Yeah, I mean, I remember the Thunder when I was younger. I mean, they were so good. So I mean, for around 4 or 5 years, they were really solid, but they just never had enough. And like you said, just couldn't stop LeBron. I mean, that was the Miami Heat years, man, with Bosh and Wade and LeBron, Mike Bibby. I mean, they had a good team. LeBron, I mean, that was like the first super team, as people call it. People didn't really talk about super teams before, the LeBron team at Miami. But, yeah, I mean, the Thunder, they had their chances. Just, it is what it is. Will says they had Harden guard him, and it didn't work at all. Yeah, I mean, James Harden, like I said, him leaving the Thunder, it was so tough. I mean, if he had stayed, I mean, who knows what would have happened. I mean, I still don't know if they would have won, a title if he stayed, but it might have increased their chances. I agree, Will. I agree with 100%. The 2008 Celtics were a super team. Absolutely. I was a very little kid. I was very young when the 2008 Celtics team were playing. I remember that team. I was very young, but they were my first, I guess you say, favorite sports team. I watched, for whatever reason, I watched the Boston Celtics almost before I watched Alabama football. I did watch some Alabama football in 08 and 09, but I mean, the 08 Celtics, I love the 08 Celtics. But the point is that nobody really called it a super team. No one really said that for some reason. With LeBron, with Bosh and Wade, everybody's like, this is a super team, this is a super team. But no one really said that about the 08 Celtics. But I agree, they were a super team. No one just said it at the time. But I mean, Ray Allen, Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, so many great players. I love that team. Ray John Rondo as well. I mean, with the Boston Celtics, like, I like the teams they have now. I still like the Celtics, but man, I love that team. It was just fun. It was just a fun team to watch. Yes, I did see it, Christian Fernandez. I will write you back on your comment on my video. I really appreciate that. Just unfortunately didn't have time today to make a video on it. And then obviously wanted to go live tonight. But I will definitely try to make a video on Louisville basketball with the announcement on Kashawn Pryor and with the other players that they have added this offseason. Louisville's had a good offseason. For whatever reason, I just have not been able to get around to making a video on Louisville. I've been wanting to. I did make a video when they hired Pat Kelsey. I don't know if you saw that or not. You might have. I can't exactly remember if you watched the video or not. But I did make a video on Louisville getting Pat Kelsey and when they fired Kenny Payne. But I will try to make a video on that. I don't know if I'll be able to do it tonight because obviously this game's going to end pretty late. So I will try to do that tomorrow. But do appreciate the shout-out, Christian Fernandez, on asking for a video. I mean, I don't mind if people request videos at all. I mean, I'll definitely try to get to them. I've been wanting to do a video on Louisville, but just haven't been able to get around it. Had a lot of stuff going on recently, just been crazy. So I haven't been posting as often as I normally do, but I'm trying to post as frequently as possible. I like to keep up the daily uploads or close to the daily uploads, hence the slogan that I always have at the beginning of my videos. Try to talk sports every single day, or at least I try to, but definitely appreciate that, Christian Fernandez, and I will definitely try to get that video out as soon as possible. Do appreciate you for tuning in. Will says Pac-12 has announced the TV deal for Oregon State and Washington State. It will be 11 games on the CW and 2 games on Fox. Oregon State versus Oregon on Fox or FS1, and Wazoo versus Texas Tech on Fox or FS1. I mean, that's kind of sad. It really is. I mean, that shows you what these networks think about Oregon State and Washington State. The CW is not going to get ratings. I mean, like, the CW occurs. I mean, we had a lot of fun with that this past season, Will. You remember me and you? It was funny talking about the CW curse. But realistically, how many viewers do those CW games have? Not a lot. I mean, it's just really going to hurt Oregon State and Washington State. If they don't join the Big 12 or just, I mean, really the Big 12, there's really no other conference I could see adding them. If they don't join the Big 12 in the next year or two, I mean, they're just going to fall further and further behind, and then their desirability is going to be in the toilet. I mean, no conference is going to want them because they're not going to be, like, financially viable. They're not going to be seen as worth it. So, I mean, we'll see what happens with Oregon State, Washington State, but just things are not looking that good for either of those teams right now, of those universities. And the CW having most of their games, I mean, they're barely getting any quality games. That's tough. But, I mean, that's the day and age we live in sports. I mean, the money's driving everything. I mean, money's always driven everything, but it seems like it's more so now than it's ever been. Christian Fernandez says, who do you think will win the NBA playoffs? I have the Celtics. The thing is that the Boston Celtics, I've been saying like the last 3 years, I thought they were my favorite. Like even last year, it was either Boston or Denver for me. I thought it was Boston or Denver was my second choice, right behind Boston. And then Boston loses to the Miami Heat in that series. I couldn't believe it. I mean, Tatum being hurt, that was tough, but I still believe that regardless of Tatum's injury in that final game, they should have never gone down 3-0 in that series. I mean, that was ridiculous. Miami did shoot a ridiculous percentage from 3 in those games, but it is what it is. But I think Boston, it has to be their year. I mean, it has to be their year eventually. I mean, if they're going to win one, I mean, I'm not saying they can't do it in the future, but the thing is, the Thunder are going to get better. Indiana's looking like they're going to get better. A lot of these teams are young and they're getting better. The Orlando Magic, I mean, these teams are on the rise. And if you're Boston, like Tatum and Brown, they're still young, haven't even technically entered the prime yet. You know, you talk about prime years, usually 26, 27, like 30, 31. Kind of the way it works. So, I mean, they're still younger than their prime. But like somebody like Al Horford, he's not going to be as good as he is right now much longer. I mean, he's going to decline. And then maybe the Celtics get rid of him. And plus, like, as much as they're paying Tatum and Brown, like, how's the roster going to work out paying the other guys? I don't know. I just feel like Boston needs to get, you know, the monkey off their bat. They need to just win. They need to find a way to win this year if they're going to get it done with the Jays. If they don't do it now, it's not impossible in the future. I just think it's going to be a lot harder if they don't get it done because every single subsequent year, it's just going to be people putting more pressure on them. This is like going to be like, is this their last chance? Can they do it after this? So, and every other team, I feel like Denver is playing worse this year. And then you talk about, again, the Thunder. I mean, they're really young. Like, they're going to continue to get better. Minnesota, we'll see what direction they go in. The Knicks are injured. So, there's just not a lot of teams that I feel like can beat Boston at this point. I mean, really maybe Minnesota or Denver. Or maybe the Thunder if they can get out of that Mavericks series. And then they just play fantastic. A lot better than they currently are. But Boston needs to do it this season. I would say them yet again, but they can still lose. We're never going to know with Boston. Christian Fernandez says, and thank you. I'm not trying to force you to make a video on Louisville. I'm a Louisville fan myself, and I just wanted to hear your opinions on Pat Kelsey filling out an entire Louisville roster. Absolutely. I mean, you're good, Christian Fernandez. I appreciate the suggestion. Absolutely. And I totally get it. I mean, I've made tons of videos on a lot of teams. Like, I've covered, like, Kentucky. I mean, it's probably, like, for you probably see my channel. I've covered Kentucky, like, 8 times. But, I mean, like, Kentucky, everybody's talking about them with Mark Pope and the Calipari situation. So, it's just, like, they've just had player after player. Louisville's just kind of floated under the radar because I mean, they've landed a couple guys. Like when I get to the video and talk about the guys they've added a couple guys that are pretty headline, but like they just never really got that guy, like a top 15 player in the portal for the most part. But they've gotten some really solid players. I feel like they're going to have a very balanced roster, and the way Pat Kelsey coaches, I'm really liking the possibility of Louisville, especially in a conference in the ACC that it doesn't seem like it's going to be as tough as the SEC, Big 12, Big 10, or even the Big East. There's a shot that he could have a lot of success in year one. I can't wait to get to the video, though. Can't wait to talk about Louisville. But you're good, Christian Fernandez. I really do appreciate the suggestion, and I definitely see why you want to, have a video being talked about with the entire roster for sure, because of the fact, like a lot of people, like they cover one player at a time. I've always been like, I want to cover the entire roster. Like when a player gets added, I usually talk about the other additions as well, because I mean, it's important to talk about how they're going to fit in with the other players and a lot of other things as well, and how they fit with that coach's system. So a lot of stuff to talk about for sure, but Louisville, we know for sure, no matter what, Louisville's going to be better than they were this past season. And hopefully that makes that Louisville-Kentucky game a lot more competitive, because I used to really enjoy those games back when Rick Pitino was the coach at Louisville, and then you had Calipari. Those games were very, very entertaining. In the last few years, it's been one of those games just you throw it away. It's like, yeah, we know Kentucky's going to beat Louisville, so it's been frustrating for sure. So hopefully that rivalry will get really good again. Jackson says, well, we know Oregon, Washington, Texas Tech aren't going to get cursed by the CW, but Purdue, on the other hand, they may get cursed. That's funny, Jackson. That CW curse, I loved it, man. I hope that it happens again this season in a way. Obviously, I don't want it to happen in North Carolina like it did this past year, but like I just was enjoying that. Like every single time, it was like the team that was favored would lose. It was just hilarious. But the thing is, I think it was more the fact that a lot of the teams that were like the favorites, they weren't really that good anyway. In North Carolina, they always have a weird propensity to choke. I don't know why. But back to the game, though. We got a minute left in the second quarter. Minnesota just knocked down a 2, but Denver leads by 4, 48-44. Jamal Murray going up with almost a sick layup, but he couldn't get it to fall. Back the other way for Minnesota, Nickeil Alexander-Walker in the lane. He loses the basketball out of bounds. Referees are saying it went off his leg. He disagrees. But when the players argue calls, whether it's fouls or who the ball went off of, most of the time they're not going to get it reversed. It's just the way that it goes. It's almost like you're just wasting your time, unfortunately. Jamal Murray kicks to Jokic, thought about the jumper. Jokic going on Gobert. Almost a steal, but Christian Brown saves. What a play by Christian Brown. He's been in all the right places in this game. Murray, who's been quiet for a long time in this game, he knocks down a nice floater to put the Nuggets up by 6. That was a good play. 15 seconds to go in the second quarter. Minnesota can just dribble this thing out. Take the last shot. Anthony Edwards at the Nuggets logo. 5 seconds left. Looks like I think the Nuggets took a take foul. I've never really understood why they do that. I mean, I get it. You want to waste the time, foul them, not let them get an easy shot off, but you're also wasting a foul. Like you could use that foul later in the game. So there's 7 seconds left. Denver fouled Minnesota. I don't know if they have any more fouls to give or not, whether they'll do it again. Edwards down the floor, and he misses the layup, and the Nuggets lead by 6 at the half. 50-44. Anthony Edwards tried to go up with a very tough layup, just couldn't get that thing to fall. So the Nuggets with a 6-point lead. This is definitely a far cry from the first 2 games in this series with Denver at home, where we shockingly saw Minnesota go out there and knock them off both times. I was blown away at that. But the Nuggets, they've responded, winning those 2 games at Minnesota. And now the way that they're playing so far, it does look like they're going to find a way to possibly be able to win this game. I mean, it's not a done deal. Minnesota could easily come back and win, but Denver's on the right track. I mean, the fact they're up by 6, and I don't really think that they necessarily played an elite half. They didn't even play a great half. That's a good sign. A lot of people say, like, when you're down by 5 and you didn't play that well, it's a good sign you can come back. But, I mean, Denver's up by 6, and they just, at times, they didn't play fantastic. So, it's definitely a good sign, like, if Jamal Murray gets on fire in the second half, because he's usually a second-half player. Jokic can keep up his steady play. Gordon and Porter Jr. had their moments, but I still feel like if Denver wants to repeat this year, if they want to win this series and then repeat and win another title back-to-back, those guys got to step up. Gordon and Porter Jr. have had their moments, but they've disappeared in this series. Gordon had a couple good dunks, but like Porter Jr., he did knock down 1-3, but outside of that, he hasn't really done all that much else. Stephen Cherry says the NBA champion will come out of the West. It's very well possible, Steven. I mean, I just feel like Boston has to get it done eventually. I mean, Denver, like I said before earlier in the stream, that they just don't look as good to me this year. They're not playing as well. They're still playing well, but they're not playing as well. And then the Thunder, I mean, they're young, and I just feel like even in this series with the Mavericks, their youth has been exposed at times. And it doesn't mean that they're not good. They're really good. But I just feel like the Thunder, they're going to peak in about 2 or 3 years. And we're going to see like what they're fully capable of if they can keep the roster together. I don't know if they're going to be able to pay everybody. That's going to be a whole other thing. But if they can keep that roster together, Thunder are going to be really, really good in a couple of years. They're just so young right now, and it shows at times. Like Josh Giddey, he is a blossoming player, fantastic player. I like his game, but there are times when Josh Giddey just messes up really, really badly, and it's just because he's young. Both Jalen Williams are young. They're going to get better. But, I mean, Boston has more experience. I feel like Boston has the right mix of youth, depth, experience that – I mean, with Drew Holiday, replacement for Marcus Smart, if Kristaps can come back. Kristaps Porzingis is an X factor. He's got to get healthy again. If Boston can get, past the series they're in right now against Cleveland, which they should, then you're going to see possibly Kristaps coming back. So, I mean, the team is just going to be hard to beat them. If they're healthy and they don't choke, Boston has a great shot. Christian Fernandez says, I appreciate you keeping up the transfer portal updates this offseason. It's been a crazy offseason with the portal, so I understand it's a lot to keep up. You're very welcome, Christian Fernandez. I really do enjoy covering the portal. The portal, I don't love it at times because, I mean, I did like it in the past where I felt like programs really had to focus on high school recruiting, make sure they brought in the right players, and then those guys would develop over time. And like if you just recruited the wrong players or the guys that just didn't fit your system or your program or they just never developed, maybe that was on you or maybe it was on that player. But now it's like the season, it's not even over. Like I know like the season ended in early April. College basketball has been over for over a month, but college basketball isn't over either. Like we're still talking about it and it is slowing down. It is definitely slowing down for sure. But the portal, there's still going to be a few more big additions. Like if guys withdraw from the draft, I think there's a couple guys that are in the portal that have declared, but they could come back and then they're going to commit somewhere. So we're still going to have portal news in June, like early June. And I mean, it makes it where the college basketball season just, it doesn't end. It's the off season, but everybody's still talking about it. When I was younger, and I'm sure for everybody in chat, like, college basketball used to be a deal where when the season ended, you didn't even talk about basketball until like October. You didn't talk about it. It was over with. Now we talk about college basketball. Like we're talking about college football as well, all in the offseason. You got the spring transfer portal window. I mean, we used to talk about the spring games, but like you still got the spring transfer portal window. Guys are transferring all in December and January, even February. It's just wild. Like college sports are forever changed. But, I mean, I do like the portal in a way because, I mean, it gives more news to cover. It keeps people talking about the sport because, like, who doesn't love talking about sports? I mean, that's why I started this YouTube channel. I love talking about sports. So it's like it gives me more to talk about. It gives everybody more to talk about. So it's great, but it's also chaotic, and it's almost at times overwhelming. Like you said, Christian, it's a lot to keep up with. Like sometimes – I'll be like away from, like during that stretch, like in late April, there was 1 week where if I was away from my computer for like a day, then there was tons of stuff I missed. Like multiple videos worth of material that I mean, I did a couple like mega portal update videos. I think I might have talked about Louisville for brief in one of those, like with a couple of additions that they made, I think, for brief. But like I just had to do like a big portal update because I couldn't physically cover it all. I couldn't make individual videos for it all unless I was doing like shorts where I just like made short for all these portal guys. I just didn't want to do that because I like going more into depth. I mean, I do shorts, but sometimes, but I mean, I'm not a massive fan of them because I like to go more in depth. But yeah, it's insane. I mean, like you just can't physically keep up with it all. It's impossible. It is so crazy. But I mean, that makes the average fan like somebody that might not have used to be like super invested in college basketball or college football all the time. Like now they are. I mean, they're locked in. Like people that I know that used to just be like fans that would only watch like a few games a year. Now they're like talking to me during the offseason. My team just got this player, or you know what? And I'm like, they're locked in. Everybody is just they're infatuated with the portal. It's interesting. It has its drawbacks. It has its flaws. There's a lot of things I don't like about it. I think it's the Wild West. I think it needs to have some regulation. It's just crazy right now. It's unbelievable how wild it is. But one thing you can say about it is it makes the sport interesting. That's one thing you can say. Clint Moses says, I hear those CW Fox FS1 kickoffs might be noon and 3 p.m. Much better than 7:30 West Coast time. Yeah, I mean, that's going to help Clint with like Oregon State, Wash State. That's going to help, like, especially if it's noon, maybe get more Eastern time, like people, especially like if you're not interested in the big noon game. Like some people that I know, they'll watch like the big noon kickoff game or like the ESPN game, even if they're not a fan of that team or the two teams that are playing. They'll watch those anyway. But like some people will watch, you know, like if they don't care about the big game, they will watch like a game that's on like CBS Sports Network or FS1 or the CW. They will. But the problem is for like Oregon State, it's just say that they are playing at like 3. And then there's like a massive CBS game in the Big Ten or a massive SEC game. It's still going to be tough for Oregon State and Washington State to get views, especially if the teams aren't good, which I'm not saying Oregon State's going to be bad, but losing Jonathan Smith, DJ Uyunglele, I mean, that's bad. That's tough. That is really tough. I just don't know if they're going to be able to keep, you know, being a competent program like they've been the last three years or so with Jonathan Smith, where people like legitimately have been talking about Oregon State. Like I remember when I first started watching like the Voice of College Football, you know, and I was in like the chat, and I remember you, Clint Moses, being in there. Everybody would be like, I feel bad for you, Clint Moses. Oregon State stinks. But like now, like people have legitimately been like, Oregon State's a threat. Like that Oregon State-Washington game, that game had so much hype. So much hype. And Oregon State almost won. They were very close. The rain, I think, helped Oregon State, but Washington got it done. But, I mean, it was fun seeing the Beavers be good. And now they lose Jonathan Smith with all this realignment. Oregon State's being left behind. John Smith left for the Big Ten with Michigan State. I don't know if they're going to be good anymore, and that's tough. And if they're not good, it's going to be even harder for them to get views. Because I feel like with the ACC games on the CW, I think that with a lot of those games, like if the teams were bad, then the ratings were really poor. Like no one was watching like Virginia play like Boston College or whatever. Like those, or Pittsburgh, Virginia. Those games, I turned them on for brief. Like because the way I am when I'm watching like college football on Saturdays, if there's a game that's like a massive game, it's on like CBS or ESPN or Fox, and it's not good. Like if all the games are bad and they're all blowouts, I will turn on some of the smaller games. I will view the CW if like Virginia, Boston College is like 21-20 with like 3 to go. I'll watch it, but a lot of people don't. Some people don't even have the CW. So I just don't know how it's going to affect Oregon State. It's going to be really interesting, though. Will says Celtics are kind of like the Suns of the West. I can't trust them. I think the Nuggets will repeat. To be fair, Will, I don't trust the Celtics either. That's why I'm leery to be like, yeah, they're going to win. I'm leery to say this is the Celtics' year because I thought that last year. I thought that the year before last year. And they can't do it. They just can't get over the hump. So if they can't get over the hump, it's just, yes, you could say they're the best team this year. I feel like they're going to win this year. But I felt like it those other years. So I'm not sure. I don't really know if the Celtics are going to blow it or not again, Will. But, I mean, to say they're the Suns of the West is kind of apt. I think they're better, though. That's the only difference. I think Boston's better than the Phoenix Suns. Like, the best team the Phoenix Suns had was when they had Booker and they had Cam Johnson and they had DeAndre Ayton. And Chris Paul was still, like, he was out of his prime, but he was playing. He was better offensively. He was more dangerous offensively than he is right now. And they made it all the way to the finals, and they lost to the Bucks. That was the best Suns team. And then when they made the Kevin Durant trade, they got worse. And why did they get worse? Because they had to give away a lot of guys. They had Mikal Bridges as well. I didn't mention Mikal Bridges. Cam Johnson, Mikal Bridges. When they had those guys, it kind of made the Phoenix Suns feel like they were more like the Denver Nuggets, where they had a lot of depth. They had a lot of guys that could score. They had a lot of guys that could contribute. Whereas now it's like, okay, they got Booker. Okay, they got Kevin Durant. And then they're like, oh, we got Bradley Beal. And it's like, well, Bradley Beal is not on those other two guys' level. He's not Devin Booker or Kevin Durant offensively. Bradley Beal's a good player, but he just can't provide you as much of a punch as those other two. And then you look at the rest of the team, and it's like, okay, Yusuf Nurkic, he's a way worse offensive player than DeAndre Ayton. Absolutely worse. And then Eric Gordon, obviously I'm not going to say anything negative about Eric Gordon, former Indiana player. Eric Gordon's a solid player, but, I mean, he's not 27 anymore. He's 34. I mean, he only gives you like 3 or 4 threes a game. And it's like they thought bringing Eric Gordon, he was going to give them more offensively. It's just the Phoenix Suns are too much star talent, and then the rest of it's the gaps are not filled, which is why they're worse. Boston has the gaps filled. They got the stars in Tatum and Brown, but then they've got Drew Holiday. They've got Kristaps Porzingis. They got Al Horford. I mean, they got a lot of players that are solid. Derek White. I mean, Derek White, a lot of people are on the Derek White train because that guy, especially whatever reason, when he plays the Miami Heat, that guy's on fire. But that legendary tip-in last year. But so Boston's better than the Phoenix Suns, but I get your sentiment, Will. And then with the Nuggets will repeat, it's funny because a lot of people thought the Nuggets were going to repeat. And then when they were down 2-0 against Minnesota, everybody was like, nope, the Nuggets aren't going to repeat. I think Minnesota's going to win it. And then now that they're back tied in the series and it possibly looks like they're going to win this game, people are back on the Nuggets train. It's crazy how that shifts. Alfie says, agree. Appreciate that, Alfie, for sure. Clint says, college, no salary cap portal and top-tier locker rooms. Professional salary cap locked in contracts and basic locker rooms. Yeah, I mean, the thing with college is that it's great for the player. Right now, it's never been better for the athlete than it is right now in college sport. I mean, the athlete has everything at their disposal. They get free scholarships. They get NIL and a lot of it if you're really good and a program wants you. I mean, they get all the equipment in the world. I mean, it's unbelievable. No salary cap. So, like, however much your worth is deemed. I mean, Great Osabor. I don't know if you guys saw my video on Great Osabor transferring to Washington. That was the last video I made on the portal. But in that video, I'm talking about the fact that he got $2 million. Reportedly. $2 million in NIL. And I'm like, he's a good player, but it's like he's not even going to be a top 10 to 20 player in college basketball next season. And he reportedly has the highest NIL contract or like contracts. So I think sometimes there's multiple contracts that compound, an athlete's NIL deals. But it's like, really? It doesn't even make any sense. So, yeah, I mean, it's never been better for the athlete, but it's never been worse for the coaches. It's never been worse because, I mean, so many coaches, it seems like they're staying in professional sports if they're trying to be in professional sports rather than being in college because the perks that college used to have where it's like, it's more, I guess you would say laid back where it's like you have these players And, they're going to stay with your program because of the fact that, that if they transfer, they're going to have to sit out a year, which they don't want to do. So if you bring a guy in, as long as he's, I guess, happy with, I guess his role enough or he's whatever, like he's going to stay. Now it's just crazy. I mean, like you can't, a guy could be a starter in your program and he likes you, as a coach and he likes your style of play. Like a guy like Rylan Griffin, starter for Alabama this past season. Alabama went to the Final Four, had a great season. Rylan Griffin transfers to Kansas anyway. It's like, what happened? I mean, Nate Oates, people saying he's a great coach. I mean, they went to the Final Four. They knocked off North Carolina, Sweet 16. But nope, it didn't matter. Rylan Griffin was a starter, played tons of minutes. He's still transferred to Kansas. Probably for more NIL. I don't know. But that's the thing. I mean, it's just, it makes it tough on these coaches. A lot of coaches just don't want to put up with it. And I kind of don't blame them. Stephen Cherry says, great show, Jeffrey. Got to go to bed. Buckeyes win the Natty in basketball and football this year. Appreciate that, Stephen. Do appreciate you for being here tonight. It was a lot of fun having you in the chat like always. Hope you have a great night. But Buckeyes, they got a legitimate shot in football. Basketball, don't know if they're going to be able to win a Natty. But Jake Diebler's done a pretty good job in the offseason, so you never know. Crazier things have happened. But the Buckeyes looking pretty solid in both sports, especially in football. But appreciate you for being here, Steven. But the second half is back. We're back in action for the NBA Western Conference semifinals. Tied series 2-2 with Minnesota and Denver. And the second half is on. We're in the third quarter, 11 to go. 11:30 to go. Jamal Murray kicking it down low. Denver has a 4-point lead. But Minnesota, they scored, and they're on the attack. And Anthony Edwards, he's going to the line. So Anthony Edwards, who a lot of people are believing is the best player in the NBA right now, face of the league, had a quiet night so far. The fact that Minnesota, I said earlier, the fact Denver was up 6 and I didn't feel that they played all that well was good for them. The fact that Anthony Edwards hasn't done that much, he's only got 5 points right now, make it 6 because he just knocked down this free throw. The fact that he only had 5 points before that free throw and Minnesota's barely down, that's a good sign for the T-Wolves because Anthony Edwards, I would be shocked if he doesn't at least have 20, 25 points in this game. He's going to get it going in the second half. That's what stars do. They figure it out eventually. But he knocked down both free throws, so it's 50-48. Aaron Gordon with the basketball, kicks to Nikola Jokic. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, back to Jokic on the block. Towns on him. Jokic turnaround. It's off the mark. Rebound by Gobert. Jokic is usually money in that spot, but good defense from the T-Wolves. Anthony Edwards, can he get going? Kicks to Nickeil Alexander-Walker. To Towns in the corner. Towns with a step back three, and Karl Anthony Towns having a pretty good game so far outside of the foul issues. That's a really, really good shot. Towns with 16 points, 7-13 from the field, 2 of 4 from 3. Porter Jr. shooting the 3, and he knocks it down. Good sign for Denver. They need more production from guys not named Nikola Jokic or even Jamal Murray. Porter Jr., big 3 for him. He's got 6 points. Edwards in the lane, trying to find anybody to get the ball to because he was stuck. Jay McDaniels turnaround. He knocks it down. Pure, 53 all. 10 to go in the third. That was a really good shot from Jay McDaniels. He's a much improved player as well, just like Naz Reid. Jokic, top of the key. Porter Jr. kind of setting a little bit of a screen like he just kind of stumbled, though. Jokic with a sick pass to Aaron Gordon, but good defense from the T-Wolves. Tie game, 53 all. Towns driving in, goes up, instead passes to Gobert, and a flush from Rudy Gobert. Good pass from Towns. Looked like Towns could have went up with the shot, but instead got an even easier look by passing it to Gobert. And now the Timberwolves are back in front, and Michael Malone has seen enough. He is calling timeout. Alfie says, I don't like Charles Barkley because he said Filipinos not good in playing basketball. Well, I mean, a lot of people, they don't like Barkley or Shaq for various reasons. I mean, when you're a media personality and you say a lot of things, I mean, you're going to say stuff that people don't like, but I will say that there's good basketball all around the world. I will say that. I mean, if you pay attention, like they have like dunk contests in other countries, and like obviously the NBA has tons of players from other countries. There's a lot of great players all around the globe, and I'm sure in the Philippines as well, there's a lot of great players for sure. So Charles Barkley, a lot of people are giving him hate because of the fact that they're like, dude, like you were good back in the past, but would you be good in the modern day NBA? Probably not. I mean, an undersized guy that doesn't shoot the basketball, I mean, like Barkley, it would be really tough. And he was kind of slow as well. It'd be tough for him in the modern day league. But I mean, he was good in his day, but definitely that's funny on that, Alfie. He says the Big Team 5-7 fail in the playoffs. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy how many great teams have failed in the playoffs before. I mean, like we talked about the fact, like in the past, how Boston only won the one in 2008 with Doc Rivers at coach, but with all those great players, they only won one title. They probably should have won more. LeBron, many years at Miami, didn't win the title. A lot of great teams have fallen short. Clint Moses, thanks for the breakdown. You're very welcome, Clint. Definitely. I mean, when you guys, say stuff in chat, like ask questions or like you bring up, stuff. I mean, that keeps the show going. I appreciate when you guys, bring, life to the chat by talking about whatever you want to talk about. I mean, we're talking about the NBA, but I don't mind talking about college as well during the show. I mean, it just tons of stuff to talk about. That's why we're only talk sports here. Talk about college football, basketball, NFL, and NBA. I mean, I know that I don't really cover any other sports, but I do cover the main four. But you're very welcome, Clint. Will says too many egos on the Suns. And that right there, Will, is absolutely true. And it's one of the biggest reasons and downfalls for so many sports teams, particularly the NBA in the past, is egos are a problem. I mean, the Nets, like that was the worst combination of players I've ever seen in my life. The Nets, when they had Kyrie Irving, James Harden, and Kevin Durant. I mean, that was just like anybody that thought that was going to work was out of their mind. And granted, they were pretty close to making a decent run that year, but Kevin Durant had his foot on the line. I mean, that infamous game where he had his toe on the line, it was a 2 instead of a 3, and they lost. But still, I mean, no one had on their bingo card that the Nets were going to win a title or anything with those three. I mean, it just, they're all great players individually, but together, it just doesn't work. I mean, the tight players and their personalities, the egos, it just doesn't work. Clint Moses, shout out Connor Johnson as well. His first call-in for the Voice of College Football was before USC versus Beast. He got laughed off the panel. Final score was 17-14. For sure, you and Connor Johnson are the two Beavers. I mean, I remember when I had the interview with Brandon Olson of Locked On Gators back in the summer last year. It was so funny. Both you and Connor Johnson were in the chat, and Brandon Olson was like, too many Beavers, because Oregon State beat Florida in the bowl game the previous year. That was so funny. I love that. But yeah, I mean, you guys have been the beacons for the Oregon State Beavers in the Voice of College Football community. Also, in my community as well. It Only Talk Sports. You're like all around on YouTube. I mean, a lot of people, just not enough people giving Oregon State love, but you guys have been there. But I just don't want that to go away for Oregon State. I want to continue to see them being good. But that's hilarious, Clint. I mean, sometimes, people laughed at the Wright brothers and it turned out good. So, I mean, a lot of people, they make that mistake. 55 all, go Bear down low. Kicks to Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and his three is off the mark. Now Jokic down the floor. Caldwell Pope. Back to Jokic. Trying to get somebody to throw the ball to, and no one's open. Finally finds Jamal Murray. 8 seconds on the shot clock. Murray driving into the lane, and he lays it in off the glass. If Denver's going to win this game, Jamal Murray has got to take over at certain points in this game. He's too good of a player not to, and that play right there shows why. I mean, he's only got 6 points. In 21 minutes, he only has 6 points. He's capable of so much more. If he has like 25 points at the end of this game, it probably means Denver wins. And Nikola Jokic to Aaron Gordon. What a flush from Gordon. What a pass from Jokic. That's what makes Jokic so valuable of a player. Gordon with 10 points, 8 boards. Almost got a double-double. Anthony Edwards off the dribble. Gets a screen from Gobert in the paint. Kicks to Cat. Towns driving inside. He lays it off the glass. Nice play from Towns. 59-57. 2-point game. Nuggets in front. Nice behind-the-back pass from Jokic to Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. What a play from Jokic. He makes it look effortless. 5-point lead for Denver. Could this be where Denver starts to push out the lead a little bit? Gobert kicks to Alexander Walker. His three is short. Jokic passing it up the floor to Jamal Murray for the slam. Kind of a little layup slam, but still, it counts all the same. 64-57. And in that little 1 minute span right there, that showcased all of Jokic's passing ability, all of his passing repertoire. First had the pass to Gordon, then the behind-the-back pass to KCP, and finally the cross-the-court pass to Jamal Murray. Jokic showcasing it all. Impacting the game without scoring. And it's still crazy to me to think that around 10 or 15 years ago, the only players that were really good at passing the ball were usually 6'3", 6'2", maybe 6'4", or even guys shorter than that, guards. Those were the guys that were great at passing. I mean, you used to have guys that were like 6'5", 6'6", that couldn't pass the ball at all. I mean, they were like just incapable. And now we got guys like Nikola Jokic, 6'10", 6'11", that they're like the best passers in the entire league. I mean, Jokic is better at passing the ball than some guards are in the NBA, which is just unreal. I mean, I can't believe it. Just incredible passing. And this is why I've said before that that's what makes Nikola Jokic such a fantastic player and such a valuable asset to the Denver Nuggets, because he makes the other players around him better. I mean, guys like Aaron Gordon, Michael Porter Jr., these guys, if they're in a slump, if they're not playing all that well, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope as well, if those guys are not having all that good of a game, Jokic can get him just a wide open shot off a great pass. All he's got to do is just set him up. That guy gets open, and then Jokic just sets up that player with a fantastic pass, and then they score. And then once that player, whether it's Porter Jr., Gordon, KCP, sees the ball go through the net, that gets them going. And then that makes the entire team better. And then when you have to focus on those other players, that's when Jokic can get his. And that's why Denver was so good last year, and that's why they're so good this year, even though they've, at times this season, played worse than last year, especially in this playoff. But they are playing better the last couple games. And in this game, the last couple minutes, they're starting to find their groove. And if they keep up this level of play the rest of this game, if they win this game, it's going to be very hard for Minnesota to come back and win the series. You can come back down 3-2. It's not unheard of, but it's going to be very hard for them to do so. Will says, I feel like this Timberwolves-Nuggets series is the real finals. Wolves have so much depth. If they can get past the Nuggets, they'll probably win the finals. I mean, like I said, if you're not a believer in Boston, which totally understand why people are not, including you, Will, I get that because of the fact that the way Boston has choked in the past, despite having so much talent, I mean, they have blown a lot of series. I get it. Then there is a case that the winner of this series could win the entire thing. And, I mean, I would say Denver, based off, they have the lead right now, based on the way that they've been playing more recently in this series than Minnesota, I would say it's going to be them. But you can't count out Minnesota. Until this game's over, as long as Minnesota's within striking distance, you can't count them out of this game. Like you said, they have a lot of depth, and they have the players, for the most part, to compete with Denver, which most teams don't. And right on cue, out of the timeout, Rudy Gobert, he flushes it home to cut the lead down to 5. 64-59, 6:50 to go in the third. Jamal Murray, top of the key, being guarded by Edwards. Murray, he gets fouled. I think, was that Towns? If that was Towns, that's his fourth. I'm not sure, though. It could have been Edwards. Let's see. I think it might have been Towns, though. And again, that's another play. Towns just doesn't need to do that. On the previous play, though, Towns made a great play because he's the one that set up Gobert down low. That was a really good pass from Towns. Towns is a capable passer. Jokic driving inside. Nuggets lead by 5. 6:30 to go in the third. Jokic turning shoulder, doing all the moves on Rudy Gobert, and Nikola Jokic somehow gets that to fall. What a play by Nikola Jokic. He faked Gobert like 4 times. There's a lot of players in the NBA that can't do that, especially centers. That was an unreal play. 6:10 to go in the third. Edwards to McDaniels. Jay McDaniels going off the glass. It went in and out, but he gets it back and he slams it home. What a fortuitous play right there for Jay McDaniels that the ball went right back to him. Timberwolves cut it to 5. Jokic to KCP. Back to Jokic off the glass, and here's the offense. Earlier in this game, there were moments where the offense for both of these teams kind of stalled. The offense is back. Jokic with 23 points and 12 assists. And the fact that there is still 17 minutes left in this game, he's already got 12 assists. Anthony Edwards going up with the shot, and he's fouled. Nikola Jokic is just having a beast of a game. His points were kind of quiet at first, but, I mean, he's got 23. 23 points and 12 assists. What a move. I mean, that I go watch that all night. I mean, faking. He just kept faking out Rudy Gobert. That is excellent. Edwards' first free throw is good. 68-62. 5:37 to go in the third quarter. Edwards' second free throw, it's good as well. 68-63. 5-point game. 5:30 to go in the third quarter. We've got a good one on our hands. And Edwards, he's only got 9 points, and 6 of them are at the line. And then we got Jokic again. 25 points for Nikola Jokic. What a play. I sound like a broken record at this point for these last couple minutes. I mean, Jokic, every single play is fantastic that he is doing right now. The passes, the scoring. This is peak Nikola Jokic. Alfie says the Suns failed Big Three Durant's son, but CP3 and the Suns, he took the NBA Finals at first. Chris Paul, Bridges, Ayton. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I like that team a lot. I mean, that team with Chris Paul, Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, Booker, and DeAndre Ayton, it was better than the current team because they have more balance. Now they just have too much talent at the top, and then the rest of the guys, it just doesn't work. Some of the guys on the bench, they're not capable of, filling in the gaps when Booker or Durant, aren't having a great game. It is what it is. And Bradley Beal, they thought he would work. He's been okay. He just isn't enough for what they need. But I agree 100%. Their window was that year. They needed to win it when they had Chris Paul back then. And they just couldn't get it done. 4:58 to go in the third. Nuggets lead the Timberwolves. Minnesota hanging in there. It's been a very close game all game long, but Denver is starting to push out the lead a little bit. And now things are getting a bit chippy between Jaden McDaniels and Aaron Gordon. We know that Jaden McDaniels, he's had a lot of moments in these playoffs where he's gotten into it with players. It looks like he kind of grabbed Jamal Murray when he went up for that shot. So I don't blame the Nuggets for getting kind of frustrated at him. No technical on McDaniels. I guess you could say it was a basketball move, but I get it. Jamal Murray got 9 points, a rebound, and assist. That's just not enough, though, for Jamal Murray. I mean, he's a guy that we know can go off for 30. He's just been a little bit passive in some of these recent games. And I feel like if he can reach his full potential along with Jokic, who is in this game, he's reached his full potential for sure, then that's going to make Denver a more dangerous team. RC, appreciate you for stopping by. He says, yo, is that really the homie only talk sports? What is up, man? And my Wolves don't let me down. I appreciate that, RC. I've been wanting to go live more often in this NBA playoffs like I did last year. I just haven't had the time, but I'm finally back for a live stream tonight. Glad you showed up. I did do a live stream last week. I don't know if you saw that one, but I am back tonight, and I do appreciate you for stopping by. Always great to see my man RC in the chat. But your Timberwolves, I mean, the way they started, man, I mean, up 2-0 in the series, I was stunned. Because I did game 2 last week, and that's when Minnesota knocked off Denver yet again on the road. And that was an ugly game. I mean, Denver on their own floor got destroyed. I mean, it was a horrible game if you were a Denver fan. But then ever since then, the flip is script. Denver's figured it out. I don't know what's changed. I mean, the energy, they're playing harder. I mean, I guess like Jokic, he's figured out Gobert and Towns, and it just feels like Denver's back to playing at the level that they were when they won it all last year. It feels like they're getting closer and closer to that point. Most playoff assists by center in NBA history. Nikola Jokic is already 4th all-time in assists for a center in the playoffs. You know he's going to end up passing Kareem Abdul-Jabbar at the top of that list one day. I mean, Jokic, he's got a lot of years left in the NBA. The fact that he's already 4th all-time, that shows you how great of a passer he is. Unbelievable. But now Denver, hold the phone for Minnesota. Things are getting a little bit rough here. The Nuggets are on a 21-8 run, and they're up by 11. So, RC, your Timberwolves, they're going to have to find an answer here. Can Anthony Edwards get it going? In the mid-range, misses the jump shot, and the ball went over the backboard, so that's automatically Denver ball. Christian Taylor, appreciate you for stopping by. RC says, only talk sports. My Minnesota team's always breaking my heart. The Vikings, the Twins, the Wolves. I'm a glut for punishment. Unfortunately, there are certain cities or certain states, like with the sports teams, where a lot of the teams do let you down. I've seen a lot of people say that, like the New York teams, like the Mets and, like the Giants and the Knicks, even though the Knicks are doing better now, but like just so many franchises. Like like Carolina Panthers, Charlotte Hornets, they're both really bad right now, so it's rough in my state. I mean, obviously, you got the North Carolina Tar Heels, Duke Blue Devils. Like, college basketball is still good, but, like, it's rough with the professional sports. I mean, the Carolina Hurricanes in hockey, they're doing good. But a lot of people, some people don't like hockey. They like football and basketball. But, yeah, I mean, it's tough. I agree. The Vikings, I mean, I've watched them have so many games, man. They should have won. And they find ways to lose. It's crazy. And the Timberwolves, I mean, at least with the Timberwolves, I don't know what's better. I mean, being awful like the Charlotte Hornets or having a good team that finds ways to choke. I would say it's better to have a good team that chokes than being bad, because at least, like, the team is fun to watch for the majority of the time, even if they blow it when it matters the most. But, I mean, like, at least the T-Wolves aren't awful like they used to be. But I get your point, RC. Hopefully Minnesota can figure it out. Still time in this game. There is definitely still time. Got a whole 4th quarter left. We know things can change on a dime in the NBA. I mean, it ain't like college basketball where if you're up by 10, there's like 5 to go, more likely that team's done. I mean, not always. We saw that Iowa-Michigan State game that I think was last year, where Iowa came back from being down like 15 with like 90 seconds left. That's because they hit a bunch of threes. But that's the same thing with the NBA. They hit a bunch of threes, so they can come back. Like Minnesota, if they're down 10 with 4 to go, they can still come back if like Anthony Edwards goes on fire. But they need stops if that occurs. But they're down by 11. Edwards kicks to Gobert. Over to Monte Morris. Back to Edwards. Edwards off the dribble. Driving into the lane. Takes contact from KCP and one. KCP took a shot right there from Anthony Edwards. I mean, Anthony Edwards, he's a guard, but he's not necessarily a small player either. I mean, he's pretty bulky. Man, I mean, he definitely knocked out KCP. What a damn one from Anthony Edwards. He's sweating hard. I mean, he's playing hard. That's not the issue. Effort's not an issue right now for Minnesota. They just withstood a little bit of a flurry from Jokic. I mean, they're not out of it yet. Jokic, once he goes on a little run like that, I mean, he was on fire there, but we'll see if he's cooled off a bit. Michael Porter Jr. kicks to Aaron Gordon in the mid-range. His shot is off the mark. Rudy Gobert with the board. Anthony Edwards up the floor. T-Wolves down 8. 3:05 to go, and Ant-Man missed the 3. Had a decent look, couldn't get it to fall. Aaron Gordon up the floor. Gordon kicks to Jokic. Spin move, Jokic off glass. Gobert, just not much he can do there. Jokic is in the zone. 78-68. 10-point lead. Jokic approaching 30 points. He's got 27 and 12. He's only missed 4 shots in this game. Edwards off the dribble. Nowhere to go. Kicks to Monte Morris. Morris driving all the way to the hoop. That's a good play by Monte Morris. when you're surrounded by stars, you got to pick your spots. That's a good play. 78-70, 2:32 to go in the third quarter, timeout on the floor. RC says, I've been watching basketball nonstop since 6 p.m. I had to watch Caitlin's first game versus the Sun. Then I had to watch my Las Vegas Aces. And now watching the T-Wolves attempt to finish the epic collapse. Yeah, I mean, it would be an epic collapse if Minnesota lost this game and then lost game 6 on their own floor as well. And to start the series out 2-0 and then lose the next 4, I mean, that would be really tough. But it's not over yet. But that's wild, RC. Watching basketball for that long. I mean, I've done it before. I've watched basketball like in the past. There's been some days like, on some of those college basketball Saturdays all day long. If you got like all day free, nothing going on, I mean, it's fun to watch basketball for a while. But yeah, Caitlin Clark, a lot of people are talking about the WNBA now more than they ever have because of, Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark, some of these new players joining the league. I mean, it's getting the buzz of the WNBA. I mean, I think they're even having expansion soon. So, like, they're going to be adding some new teams, which is needed. I mean, the WNBA, there's not enough teams, and there's actually a lot of good athletes that they're not even able to play in the WNBA because there's not enough teams. So that's good for the WNBA for sure. RC says, somebody has to win something this postseason for me. I'm a Timberwolves, Pacers, and Dallas Stars fan at least. My Stars are up 3-1 over the Colorado Avalanche. It's Avalanche. I mean, I love when you do that, RC, when you bring the jokes. I love the jokes. The awesome, man. The Avalanche is a good one. Yeah, for sure. I mean, the Carolina Hurricanes, like, they're the only Carolina team doing anything, but looks like, I mean, they're down 3-2, I think, against the Rangers in hockey, but at least they're being competitive. But yeah, it looks like the Stars will win that series, but the Pacers, going to be tough. Very tough for them to win that series against the Knicks. They're down 3-2. I thought when OG Anunoby went down, there was a shot for Indiana, but the Knicks took care of business tonight. Even if Indiana can get them back in Game 6, it's going to be tough to win in Game 7. Maybe OG will be back by then, but you never know. There's a possibility of the Indiana Pacers can still win that series. It's possible, but just not very likely. But we'll see, RC. I think out of those 3, the T-Wolves, Pacers, and the Dallas Stars, one of them will at least advance a little further. Hopefully they do for you. 81-70, Jokic cashing in, 11-point lead for the Nuggets. Minnesota, I mean, they're still within striking distance. They're not completely out of the picture. But they need to keep this lead within 10. They can't fall behind by too much more. If it gets to a 16, 17, 18-point Denver lead, that'll be out of reach. Towns missed the shot, but then Gobert gets the ball because the Nuggets tried to save it from going out of bounds. Good awareness from Gobert. He lays it in. 9-point game. 81-72. Christian Brown driving into the lane. Nowhere to go. Kicks outside to Jokic. Jokic with Kyle Anderson on. That's a mismatch that Jokic can win. Jokic inside, and he gets fouled. Definitely no match for Kyle Anderson. It's always tough for a player that's like 6'6", 6'5", to guard somebody that's like 6'7" inches taller. I mean, they got the speed, but Kyle Anderson's not the quickest player in the world. So that was just a fantastic matchup for Nikola Jokic. Jackson says, if you love hot takes on college football, college basketball, NFL, and NBA, check out Only Talk Sports on these links on Twitter and Rumble. Appreciate the shout out again, Jackson. If you like my content, I know you're watching probably on YouTube, but if you like to follow me on Rumble as well, would really appreciate it. Trying to grow my platform over there. Put all my videos and my live streams on Rumble, and also follow me on Twitter as well. Would really appreciate that. I usually post a few times a day about various sports topics that possibly I won't be able to cover on my YouTube channel because it's so hard to cover everything. But if you guys are here and you're enjoying the show, I would really appreciate if you would subscribe down below and like the stream as well. Really helps get the stream out to other people. But most importantly, I do appreciate all you guys for being here. It's been a great show tonight. So far, it's been a good game. Much better game than the Game 2 live that I ended up doing. That game, it was not close. Denver got destroyed, but it was still fun. I always enjoy going live when I'm able to, but that game was definitely not very fun when it comes to entertainment for the viewer. I mean, it was not a close game at all. 83-72, 11-point lead for Denver. Minnesota trying to keep in striking distance. Missed shot by Monte Morris, and that's not the shot if you're Monte Morris. He's got to find a way to pick his spots, drive in when he can, not take a bad jump shot like that. That's just not the shot. If you're Monte Morris, I mean, there's just so many other players like Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Anthony Edwards, or even Towns that could take that jump shot. It's just Monte Morris just doesn't need to be taking shots like that. 1 to go in the third quarter. Minnesota's offense is kind of dried up. Where are the points going to come from? I still think Anthony Edwards needs to get going when he comes back into the game. And Towns just turned it over. Things could start getting out of hand if they can't get some stops. Jokic at the top of the key. 45 seconds left in the third quarter. Jokic palming the ball with his big hand at the top of the key. Gobert on him. Jokic can win that matchup. He's driving in. Gets the shot to fall and one. What a play by Nikola Jokic. I mean, with the soft touch, driving into the lane, that's just crazy. I mean, there's not a lot of players, man. That's why Jokic is one of the best. There's just not a lot of players that can hit that shot with such touch. Fading away. Good play. Gobert was just a bit too physical on that play. You got to respect him trying to prevent him from scoring. It just didn't work. It would have been better, though, if he had fouled him without him making the shot, but he hit it anyway. 86-72, Jokic with 35. I mean, he's playing so well. You include those assists as well. I mean, he's responsible for almost half the points scoring and over half the points if you count the assists that he's helped the other players score. I mean, that's why Denver's up by as much as they are. Rudy Gobert does respond, though, with a bucket of his own. So it's 86-74, 12-point game, 15 seconds to go in the third quarter. Reggie Jackson, top of the key, being guarded by Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Reggie Jackson off the dribble, driving into the lane. Nice floater for Reggie Jackson. He's had a solid game off the bench. Him and Christian Brown have both provided a lift. Monte Morris driving in, kicks in the corner of Kyle Anderson, and he can't get the shot off in time. And that is the end of the third quarter. And Denver, not an insurmountable lead, but they're pushing on it. Up by 14 points off the back of a stellar performance by Nikola Jokic, elevating his entire team. Definitely entering danger time for the T-Wolves. RC says, you're right, only talk sports. At least both of my teams that come to be in the second round of the NBA playoffs. It could be worse. I could be a Detroit Pistons or Trailblazers fan. Or Charlotte Hornets. I mean, like I said, all three of them, I mean, it is ugly. I mean, at least the Spurs, you do have, Victor Wembanyama. Maybe they'll get better in the coming years. And obviously they had all that success with Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker, Tim Duncan in the past. So it's not all that bad. But, yeah, the Detroit Pistons, I mean, they've been like the most, I guess from a fan perspective, they've been like the saddest team to watch the past few years. Like their record, I mean, at their best, they've been close to a 500 team. And at their worst, they've been just almost the laughing stock of the NBA. I mean, they've been horrible. Like, I feel real bad for Detroit Pistons fans. But at least if you are in Detroit, if you're one of those, individuals that like lives in a city like Detroit and you're a fan of all the teams like the Detroit Tigers in baseball or the Detroit Pistons in basketball or the Detroit Lions in football, at least the Lions are better. I know the Lions, they lost in the playoffs. That was tough, but at least the Lions aren't what they used to be. They used to be just an aggravating team. When they had Matthew Stafford and then they had Golden Tate and Calvin Johnson, I mean, they had enough there to be somewhat competent, but they could never win any more than like 9 games. It was kind of like Phillip Rivers at the Chargers. They repeat. They couldn't do much more than that. And then you talk about, just like guys like Matthew Stafford. I mean, it's just tough when you're at a team for so long and you don't win anything. Obviously, he got the ring with the Rams. But, I mean, just franchises like the Lions that have just been rough for so long. I mean, when they had Barry Sanders in the past, he was so good, but he didn't have any quarterback play. His quarterbacks were always not, or they were pretty terrible. They were never that competent. And then the defense was kind of mid. So it's like Barry Sanders was such an elite player, but they never won anything. Dan Marino, quarterback with Miami. So it's like with the Dolphins, like these guys, I mean, they had so much talent, but they were on bad teams. Damian Lillard with the Portland Trailblazers, same thing. I mean, the list goes on and on. But to get back to the original point, like with Detroit, at least the Lions are better now, finally. They finally won a playoff game. They're better now. So at least you have one team in that city that's good. But there's a lot of cities where every team's bad, or a state where every team's bad, and that stinks. Because maybe you're only a fan of one sport and you don't care about the others. But if you are a fan of multiple sports and you like all the teams and all your teams stink, it is frustrating. Our season only talks sports. I don't know if you know this, but Caitlin had 10 turnovers today. Wow, I did not know that. Unfortunately, I was not able to really keep up with the earlier games today. But I did not know that she had 10 turnovers. If I'd have checked Twitter before I'd have got on here, I'm sure I would have solved that. But a lot of people are saying, will she be able to adjust to the WNBA? I mean, it's technically a different game. You know, kind of like the NBA, it's tougher in certain regards, but I'm sure Caitlin Clark will be fine. I mean, like, she's such a great three-point shooter that I'm sure she'll be okay. But that's wild. I did not know that. I know she did pretty good in one of the preseason games, though. I saw that. But, wow, I would have never thought that. Fourth quarter's just started, though, and Naz Reid with a dunk. Nice pass to Naz Reid. Cuts it to 14, but Minnesota's going to have to do a lot more than that if they're going to come back. Denver, 10 points away from 100, which the way that the offense was looking at the end of the game, it didn't look like either team was going to get to 100. But Denver should easily get there. They only need 10 points, and they got over 11 minutes left to do it. Jamal Murray dribbling around top of the key, trying to get by Edwards, goes up with a layup. It's off the mark. Edwards gets the rebound. He's going up the floor. Edwards to Nickeil Alexander-Walker. He takes the triple. It's in and out, and Porter Jr. with the rebound. I mean, I don't mind him taking that shot. I mean, they're down by 14. He was kind of open, but still, you just don't want to take the first shot that's given to you. Sometimes you want to still be able to run your offense to get the best available shot. Even though time is running out, you got to, every possession you have to do, you know, the best you can to get a good shot, hopefully make that shot. You can't just chunk up shots. Edwards with another three. He had a good look. Couldn't get it to fall. Naz Reid shoots a three. Couldn't get it to fall. Gobert taps it out. Reid kicks to Anthony Edwards. Thought about the three. Naz Reid with it. Kicks to Gobert down low, and Gobert's fouled. And to me, that's still what Minnesota needs to do. They need to attack inside. I know it's tempting to want to just, you know, jump shot your way back into the game, because you're down by a decent amount and you're running out of time. And yes, Minnesota's got guys that can make threes. They got good shooters, few of them anyway. But if they're not falling, you got to go inside. Uncle Skeet appreciates you for being here. Says, yo, what's good, guys? Do appreciate you for stopping by. RC says a hamstring injury is serious business. I think OG's probably done this series, and if he was going to come back this year, it'll probably be the NBA Finals if they get there. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, Anunoby, but the game that he suffered the injury, he was playing like the best game of the season. I mean, we know Anunoby's had injury issues throughout his career at times. Like he had the appendix problem when he was with the Raptors in 2019 when they won it all, when they had Kawhi Leonard. OG Anunoby didn't play in that series, but he still got a ring, still was on the team. But he's missed a lot of games throughout his career for a player that people don't really think of as injury prone, but that was just a massive injury though, because of the way he was playing. I felt like OG was finally settling in with the Knicks, and with Julius Randle out, like it gave him an expanded role, and he was really playing well. He had like 28 in that game, and then he suffered the injury. Like you said, RC, hamstrings can be tough. I mean, they're one of those where you don't want to make it worse. You definitely don't want to make it worse. If he played on it and then he, tore his hamstring, he'd be out for a long time. So hopefully for OG Anunoby, at least like for his team, the Knicks can find a way to, win the series. Maybe he can come back so he can play in the playoffs. But we'll have to see. The Knicks, I thought for sure that, the Knicks were in a situation where they were going to win the series at the beginning. But then when he went down, I was like, maybe the Pacers win the series, but they responded tonight. But if they're going to have any shot of maybe making a run to the finals, Anunoby definitely has to return. But Naz Reid, the Red Sea parted, and Naz Reid just slammed it home. And just like that, it's the NBA. Teams can score fast. Minnesota has cut this thing to 10, and Denver's called a timeout. This game's not over yet. Uncle Skeeta says, was looking at streams and came across my boy here. Well, I appreciate you for finding me, Uncle Skeeta. I mean, it really does help if people like the stream down below. I would really appreciate if you guys are liking the stream to give the stream a like, because it does help more people find the stream, because there's tons of people on YouTube, tons of people for sure. But more people that like the stream, it can help other people find my content. I would really appreciate it if you guys are liking the content as well. Subscribe to the channel. We are getting closer and closer to 3,000 subs. I can't believe it. I appreciate all your guys' support. It's been absolutely amazing, but I appreciate all of you guys in chat tonight. It's been a great crowd tonight. It's been a great game. Definitely having a lot of fun. Jackson says, please make a comeback, Timberwolves. I mean, I think a lot of people, like, if you're not a fan of either team, you want the Timberwolves to come back so the game will be competitive. You want it to be competitive. I always want competitive games. Like, even if I don't really like a team, I'm just like, you know what? You just want, like, the game to be close. No matter what happens, you just want to have a good game all the way down the stretch. But if you're like a Nuggets fan, you don't care. Like, if you're like a diehard fan of a team, you don't care. You just want your team to win by 50. It don't matter. But I think a lot of people do agree with your sentiment. Jackson. RC says, you know what, Sad Only Talk Sports? I picked Denver in 6, man. I knew we'd lose. And after the first 2 games, I look like an unfortunate genius. Yeah, I mean, I don't think I did. I didn't make any predictions for the second round. I did do the first round. Me and Austin had a live stream where we predicted all the NBA rounds. But I think in my mind, I had Denver winning in 6 as well, RC. I think I did. I don't think I had it going to 7 because, I think the Timberwolves are good. I was blown away at the way they looked in the first 2 games. I was not expecting that. Everybody was blown away because I feel like a lot of people think Minnesota's a good team. But, like, because Denver won it all last year, I feel like a lot of people just kind of automatically assume, like, oh, they're the favorite to do it again. Like all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, it was a shock. I feel like Minnesota being up 2-0 on Denver was the biggest surprise of the playoffs so far. But the tide has turned. After the first 2 games, Denver has figured it out. Minnesota, the offense has dried up some. And yeah, it definitely looks like you're going to be right, RC. If Denver wins this game, I could easily see Denver winning game 6 and winning in 6, being, winning the series 4-2. It just seems like that's the trajectory Denver is on. It seems like Minnesota, they're trending in the wrong direction, whereas Denver's trending in the right direction. There's still enough time, though, for a comeback, so we'll see. Nothing's done yet, but Denver is playing really well right now, especially Nikola Jokic. Having an excellent game. 9:22 to go in the 4th. Denver still up by 10. RC says, you think that the Bears will be good this season with all the moves they made offensively? Well, the Chicago Bears, I'm still kind of skeptical of them getting rid of Justin Fields. I don't know how you feel about that, RC, but I think Justin Fields, with all the moves they made, this could have been the year that he finally showcased what he was capable of. But I get it. He'd been with them for a few years, never really peaked. But still, the problem is that you invested all that time in him. You drafted him, gave him all those years. Now he's gone. It's like it just wasted your time. That's frustrating. Now they got Caleb Williams, and it's like, okay, Caleb Williams might be really good, but it might take some time. Maybe he's a bust. Maybe he ends up being really good, but it takes some years. It's just, I feel like the Bears, it's just, you're kind of setting yourself back a bit. But we'll see. I think they made good moves. I think there's a shot that they end up being a playoff team, maybe. But it's going to be tough with the rookie QB. I know C.J. Stroud did it, and that was a shock. No one thought the Texans, with how bad they were the previous year, that they would get to the playoffs. But it's going to be tough. A lot of good teams in the NFL, just like the NBA. It's going to be tough, a lot of competition for the Bears, Caleb Williams being a rookie. But I think still in my mind, maybe they should have kept Fields, but I don't know. Who can really say? I think there's a shot Caleb Williams ends up being really good in year one, but we'll have to see. RC says she did finish with 22. That's not too bad. I mean, the 10 turnovers, I mean, it is her first game. But, I mean, 22 points, it still shows that that's what Caitlin Clark is capable of. 8:15 to go in the fourth, 93-80. Denver knocked down a 3. Minnesota down by 13 now. But if we go another 2 or 3 minutes and Minnesota's still down by this much, it doesn't look like they're going to come back. I mean, Denver is playing too well. The crowd is amped. Minnesota's offense is just kind of dried up. Anthony Edwards, he has not scored enough points in this game. Sporting Cats isn't getting it done either. Missed 3 in the corner from Jay McDaniels. Jamal Murray kicks to Christian Brown. They left him open, but he decides to kick it to Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, and it's Splashville. 96-80. 16-point game. Things are about to get out of hand. KCP's got 16. 6 of 8 from the field, 4 of 5 from 3. Very efficient. Nikhil Alexander-Walker kicks to Cat. He drives into the paint. His shot is really short. Michael Porter Jr. gets the rebound. Jokic down the floor. What's he got up his sleeve this time? 7:30 to go in the fourth. Jokic to Jamal Murray. Murray in the lane. Jokic in the middle. Murray turns it over. He tried to get it to Jokic, but he was definitely not open. Anthony Edwards, one of the easiest interceptions ever in basketball. But then Murray picks his pocket and he kicks it to Jokic for the slam dunk. 98-80. What a play by Jamal Murray. Right after Anthony Edwards got the easiest steal that you'll ever see. Murray picked Edwards' pocket and a really good pass to Nikola Jokic. Nikola Jokic is a fantastic passer. But Jamal Murray, he can be pretty solid in his own right at times, even though that was a really easy pass. But I don't know. I think Minnesota might be about done. It's not over yet. I'm not going to officially say it's done because, I mean, we've seen crazier things. But being down 18, 7 to go, they're on the road. I mean, it would take an epic comeback, and it just doesn't seem likely. RC says, dang, 48-year-old Mike Conley sitting out figures. I guess he's breaking down again. Yeah, that's tough. Mike Conley is what was an X factor for those first couple of games in this series. I mean, him playing next to Anthony Edwards, it was kind of a similar dynamic to Chris Paul and Devin Booker a few years ago at Phoenix when Chris Paul first went there. The dynamic was similar because you had Devin Booker, the young star, you know, with so much potential. He basically is getting better every single game. And then you had the older veteran in Chris Paul, who was still good. He was still a really capable player. But then Chris Paul, you know, he aged out. I mean, he could still play, still in the league, but he's definitely not. He doesn't have the offensive juice, the offensive firepower that he had a few years ago when he was first at Phoenix with Devin Booker. And now you see that here with Minnesota. That it's going to be interesting because a lot of people are talking about Conley, you know, with his age, but I think Gobert, I mean, how many more years will Gobert be really good? Towns, I mean, he's not super young either. He's like 28. I mean, it's like he's technically in his prime, but it's just going to be interesting to see how Minnesota, you know, progresses moving forward. They got young pieces, guys like Nikhil Alexander-Walker, Jay McDaniels, Naz Reid, and obviously the star Anthony Edwards. But they got some older guys. Mike Conley, how much longer will he be able to be effective? I feel like his career kind of has breathed a bit of new life because he had Anthony Edwards next to him. And it makes it so much easier on an older veteran when he's surrounded by stars because it makes it where he can score a bit easier. But if Mike Conley does start to break down and he's not as good, then maybe Minnesota will have to get rid of him. But then they'll have to replace him with somebody, whether it's a draft pick or whether it's, you know, a trade, because You don't want like the backcourt to be all Anthony Edwards. RC says if he tears his hamstring, he'll be gone for 7 to 8 to 10 months. Yeah, that's why with Anunoby, they had to sit him. You can't have OG Anunoby play on a somewhat hurt hamstring. It seemed pretty bad because if, like you said, if he plays and then it gets torn, then he's going to be out for a very long time. So I don't know. I think the Knicks need Anunoby. I think that if they're going to have any shot of doing more damage in the playoffs and making a deeper run, they need him back. But it is wise to sit him because, I mean, you don't want him getting hurt to the point where he can't even start at the beginning of next year. That would be really bad. But we got 7 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, and what at one time was a really great game is starting to devolve into a Denver blowout. Minnesota's offense is falling asleep. I mean, do they have one more run in them? I'm not sure if they do. They're going to have to get going in the next minute or two. They got to cut this lead down to under 10 and then with at least over 4 minutes left. Anthony Edwards, though, with a nice start, 98-82. That's a good shot by Edwards. He's only got 16 points, though. Still, he needs around 25 or 30 to make this interesting. Jamal Murray at the top of the key. 6:30 to go. Now, if you're Denver, you can't coast. Yes, you got all the advantage in the world and you want to take clock. You want to waste the shot clock, bleed the clock down, but you don't want to take too much time where your offense stalls itself out. And not a great possession for Denver. Porter Jr. had a decent look, but it didn't seem like it was within the flow of the offense at all there. And then on the other end, Karl Anthony Towns, he lays it in. So 98-84, 14-point game. Minnesota trying here. Still down 14, 6 to go. Cat's got 20. He's had a pretty decent game. Christian Brown for 3, and it goes in. If he misses that, Minnesota maybe could make a little bit of a comeback, but Christian Brown having an excellent game off the bench. And that's why the depth of Denver makes it so tough to beat him. Nickeil Alexander-Walker to Gobert. Back to Alexander Walker, and he splashes in a triple. So it's back to 14 again. Minnesota's got to get this thing under 10, though, before the 4-minute mark to have any chance. They're fighting. They still got an outside chance. Alexander Walker's got 14. Nikola Jokic, top of the key. Kicks to Porter Jr. Porter Jr. back to Jamal Murray. 5 on the shot clock. Jokic down low, over the shoulder. Good defense from Gobert. Jokic thought he was fouled. No call. Naz Reid down the floor. Naz Reid off the window. What a play by Naz Reid. Then Towns with the steal and a foul. What a sequence. Naz Reid with a 6 shot and then a steal. Is there still some time? If Towns can hit these free throws, that would cut it to 10 and get it to the deficit that I said they had to get it to before the 4-minute mark. So they're on the trajectory right now of still having a shot of being able to come back. But the thing is that there just isn't a lot of time left. If Denver scores a few more times, like if they get to around 108, 110 points, I don't think Minnesota can score that much with only 4:56 left, but we'll have to see. And unfortunately for Minnesota, Towns just missed the first free throw. You cannot have missed free throws at this stage of the game. You got to knock down every available point that you can get. Towns, he does hit the second, so it's an 11-point game, 101-90. Timberwolves still hanging in there. Towns with 21 points. Jokic at the top of the key. Kicks to KCP, back to Jokic. 4:40 to go in the fourth, and there's a foul. I think that's on the floor, so that's no harm, no foul for Minnesota, but you can't foul. You can't put Denver on the line. You can't give them free points. It's not currently the time where it's smart to foul. Like if you're down by like 4 or 5 with like 40 seconds left, you can foul them, but can't foul at this stage. Jokic top of the key, driving in, kicks in the corner to Christian Brown. Christian Brown stopped by Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Aaron Gordon with a turnaround off the glass with 1 second left. How did Aaron Gordon get that shot to fall? 1 second on the shot clock, and he went off the glass. That's a sick play by Aaron Gordon. He's got a double-double with 18 and 10. Then on the other end, Minnesota with a jump shot. It's 103-92. 11-point game. Minnesota still hanging on for dear life. 4 to go. Definitely running out of time. Aaron Gordon with the basketball. Denver in no rush, knowing that they can take all the time they need. Gordon down low, getting the pass from Jokic. Gordon back to Jokic. 5 seconds on the shot clock. Jokic 1 second on the shot clock, and his turnaround jumper almost went in, but it does not drop. Now Minnesota back the other way. Naz Reid with a turnaround. It went in and out. Good-looking shot. Couldn't get it to fall. That would have cut it to under 10. Minnesota really running out of time, though. Aaron Gordon. A score here for Denver might be the end of it. Jamal Murray sizing up Anthony Edwards. Screen from Nikola Jokic. Crossover from Jamal Murray. Murray. Back to Jokic. 3 seconds on the shot clock. Jokic with a step-back three, and it's good. What a shot from Nikola Jokic. That is insane. Nikola Jokic with 40 points, 13 assists, and 7 boards. I agree with you, Sonny Verma. Appreciate you for stopping by. He says Jokic single-handedly ruined Gobert's reputation tonight. Incredible. People talk about Rudy Gobert's defense. He is a really good defender. But I agree with you, Sonny Verma, absolutely, that nothing he has done has worked tonight. It just absolutely has not. I mean, we're seeing Nikola Jokic play at his peak form. He's done everything in his He's done everything in his arsenal. He's played about as well as he has had in any game. I mean, he's had more points before, and a game as big as this, Denver needs to win in the playoffs. I mean, it's crazy. Absolutely crazy how well he's played. He's done threes. He's had step backs. That one play on Gobert where he faked them out like 5 times. And the funny thing about it is when I was watching the first 2 games of this series, you just saw Jokic like he was struggling with Gobert. He was struggling with Towns. He's figured him out. I mean, Gobert, he's on him. It don't matter. Jokic just splashed. Unbelievable. RC says, we're cooked, only talk sports. Pass me the oven mitts. Absolutely. Right now, Minnesota, they're not on fire right now, but they're burning from the Nuggets because they're on fire. They're playing so well right now. RC says, man, forget Game 6. I don't want to see this team again until next season. Yeah, I mean, I get your sentiment, RC. It's tough. I mean, when your team – you want them to win. They were playing so well, and then they blow it. But, I mean, the thing is Minnesota, if they could just find a way to get that spark back from those first 2 games, maybe they'll still have a chance. But I just feel like Denver, though, they figured out Minnesota. Took them 2 games, but they figured out Minnesota. Jamal Murray off the glass. RC says, now we want to show life. Yeah, but it's too little too late. That's the problem. Gobert, he knocks down the mid-range shot. Gobert, I mean, he's had a pretty decent game offensively for his standards, but he just has not been able to stop Jokic. I mean, Gobert's 7-7 from the field. 17 points. I mean, that's solid, but Jokic has just cooked him tonight. RC says, let me double down on what I said. Y'all get this dang team out of my face until next year. I'm absolutely tired of seeing enough of this slow-forming train wreck. Only talk sports. Yeah, I mean, you kick the can down the road, and the further you kick it down the road, sometimes you can't kick it back up the road. And that just seems to be the case here with Minnesota. I mean, they had a great start to the series. They were playing great, but it's hard to come back from 2 down. But it's not as hard as it is to come back from 3 down. If Minnesota had been able to go up 3-0 in the series, kind of like how Miami went up 3-0 on Boston. That was the only way Miami could win that series. Miami was only up 2-0 on that series, and then Boston had got the next game. Boston wins that series last year, but Minnesota, they had to win a third game. They won the first two, but then when Denver came back and it was 2-1, and then they won the next one 2-2, all of the momentum has swung to Denver. They're just playing so well. I mean, this is a far cry from last week. I mean, I was live for game 2 in this series, and I'm telling you, Denver looked horrible. I mean, they were playing absolutely terrible. And I'm like, is Minnesota legitimately, like, they figured out Denver? Is the Denver dynasty over? Nope. Denver's figured it out. I don't know what they've done. I mean, you can see some things that they've changed. Like, you know, Jokic, he's figured out, you know, Gobert and Towns. But, like, it just seems like Denver, they're playing harder. And they've contained Edwards. Edwards just hasn't had a great night. Minnesota misses another shot. There's only $1:20 to go in the fourth. Denver up by 17, and everybody in that stadium's on their feet. The Nuggets are going to have a 3-2 lead on Minnesota, completing what seemed like an improbable comeback after the first 2 games in this series, down 2-0. Denver has won the last 3 games. And if they win one more, if they can win game 6 and win 4 in a row, that would just be unreal. Minnesota, you would think they got to win another game, right? They played so well in those first 2 games, but Minnesota, they're going to have to figure it out. They're going to have to find some answers. But right now, Denver possibly looking like the best team in the NBA once again. Looking great on both ends. Jokic on fire, playing as well as he ever has. Supporting cast stepped up. KCP had a solid game. Murray didn't do too much, but he chipped in when needed. So a lot of people think Boston has a chance again to do it, but there's a good shot. Denver, if they can keep it up. It looks like the Nuggets, they're back to playing high-level basketball. Towns shoots a 3. It's short. KCP with the board, and the shot clock is off. 112-97. That will be your final score. We saw the New York Knicks knock off the Indiana Pacers in the earlier game tonight, 121-91. 30-point win for the Knicks with no OG Anunoby, no Mitchell Robinson, no Julius Randle. The Knicks doing a fantastic job despite the injuries. They're up 3-2 in the series after they got destroyed by the Pacers in Game 4. Turned back around, played great in Game 5. And then you've got the Nuggets. They won 112-97 over Minnesota. It was a really good game at first, but then Denver went on that run in the third quarter, and they did not look back. And Jokic is the first player in NBA history in the playoffs to have over 40 points, 10 assists, and no turnovers. Nikola Jokic did not have a turnover in this game. That is absolutely unreal. All the passes he made in this game, and he did not even have a turnover. Nikola Jokic is one of the best passers in the NBA. We already know that, but I mean, there's a case he's the best passer in the league. I know that's crazy. There are a lot of guards that can pass, but this guy is unreal. I mean, we saw in the first couple games he had some turnovers. A lot of people are talking about that. Jokic had a few turnovers that were uncharacteristic. Well, he's cleaned that up. 40 points, 13 assists, 7 boards, 15 of 22 shooting, no turnovers. That's your ball game. That's your ball game. Rudy Gobert couldn't do anything on Jokic. I mean, he was all over him. I mean, it's not like he didn't play hard. Jokic, it just didn't matter. He was in the zone tonight. Dave Valensky, appreciate you for being here tonight, stopping by. He says Naz Reid should have started this game. Rudy has not played well since he's come back. That's true. I mean, Gobert, to be fair, he had 17 points tonight and 11 rebounds. He did record a double-double. And he was perfect shooting the ball. He was 7 of 7 shooting. So, technically, he had a good game. The problem is, though, you can't give up 40 to Jokic. You can't do that. And Gobert did. I mean, Naz Reid, when he was on him some in this game, I mean, it made a little bit of a difference, but it's just a massive difference the way Jokic played in the first 2 games in this series and how it seemed like Gobert, Towns, and Reid were bothering him somewhat. Now, Jokic just flipped the script and showing why he's MVP. Yeah, Luka, there's an argument. I agree 100%. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Anthony Edwards, but this tonight was an MVP like performance for Jokic. He's already won the award, but just unbelievable. What a performance. What a game for the most part, but Denver played excellent basketball. And Nikola Jokic, I mean, one of the best performances we've seen all playoffs, if not the best. RC says, peace out and thanks for the stream. You're very welcome, RC. I appreciate you for being here tonight. Definitely was nice seeing you again. Jay Webb, appreciate you for stopping by. He says, Denver, first 2 games turned the ball over like crazy, and that's why they didn't win. They weren't shooting the ball well. That second game was horrible. One of the worst performances I've seen from Denver since Jamal Murray has come back off of the injury. Like Denver, once he got healthy, like they've been on a roll for a couple years now, just playing elite ball. Denver, it was just uncharacteristic. Everybody was shocked. And a lot of people were like, is Minnesota just that good at defense? Like if they cracked the code on Denver. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it was more of Denver just played bad or Minnesota played well. I think it was a bit of both. But I think Denver has figured them out. I think, they regrouped. They came back, after those first 2 games that they lost, they just, all right, we're not going to lose this series. We're not going to, win it all last year and then choke in the second round. We're too good of a team. We got so many good players, and they regrouped and they went on the road at Minnesota, won game 3, won game 4, and now they've won game 5. And this game right here, I mean, is almost the most impressive of them all. I know that sounds crazy because they did win those other 2 on the road, but it's just the pure fact that this was a competitive game. I mean, the entire, I thought this game, like I was saying earlier, like in the first half, that this game was going to be like a 2-point, maybe like a 4-point game at the end of the day, all said and done, because both teams were just going back and forth. And then beginning of the third quarter, kind of midway through the third quarter, Denver just went on that run, that 10-0 run, where Jokic basically single-handedly was doing it all. Started with the passing, and then it started with the shooting, and then that was it. Minnesota can never cut back into that lead. And that's what made it so impressive, because this realistically should have been a game that went down to the wire. And Denver just said, nope, we're not having it. We're going to pull away. We're not going to let what happened in those first 2 games happen again. We're taking care of business. Just so impressive. Dave Valensky says, Towns getting way too frustrated again, going back to his old ways. Yeah, that's the thing about Towns. Problem with Towns is that you can be physical, but you cannot use your hands in the wrong way. Like a lot of times he just puts his hand down on a player. He just runs into a player, and it's like you can get away with some contact, but he just fouls. I mean, he flat out fouls, and then he gets upset about it. It's like, okay, I understand, you want to be physical. This is the playoffs. You want to, play bully ball, but you just can't body up a player and expect the referees, not to call the foul. And I mean, he lets it get to his head. It is very frustrating. I agree. That's one of his biggest downfalls. Dave Valensky said having 3 days off didn't help Minnesota going into game 3. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, it's absolutely crazy to me how things can shift on a dime. I mean, Minnesota, for a minute there, I remember last week after they won game 2, people were saying Anthony Edwards, best player in the NBA, should have won MVP. Just like Minnesota's going to win the entire thing. And now nobody's saying that. A lot of people in the social media era, in this day and age we live in, people's attention spans are just nil. Like it's like the current thing, whatever's the current thing, right? Like something's going on, and then 2 seconds later, this is, what's going on now. Nobody's thinking about what just happened. But the thing is that in this instance, it makes sense to have that thought processing. Because, I was thinking the same thing. I thought Denver would win this series. And then after the way Minnesota played in those first 2 games, anybody that thought Minnesota wasn't going to win the series was insane, right? Like Minnesota won the first 2 games. They're going back home. As long as they at least win one of those, they should win the series at the end of the day. And even I was on the Nuggets train. Like, I'm like, they're going to win the series. I think they're going to possibly make it to the finals again. It's going to be tough, to get past the Thunder if they get past the Mavericks. But still, like, the Nuggets inside track possibly to get back to the finals. But, like, nope. They looked horrible. And I even was like, I think they're going to possibly lose this series. Minnesota got their number. But again, switch is flipped. everything's changed. And like I said, this is an acceptable reason to instantly flip your brain, because I and everybody else, for a brief moment in time, thought the Timberwolves, like, legitimately, there was a case maybe that this was the best team in the NBA. And I still think they're a fantastic team. I still think they're really, really good. I think Anthony Edwards deserves all the hype that he's been getting. He's fantastic. But it does go to show you that Denver is still Denver. The Nuggets are still great, and they're still a team that has a really good shot, a legitimate shot to go back-to-back. Kind of like UConn. It'd be ironic if Denver pulls a UConn like they did in college basketball. The Huskies won a title, then won it again. And then if Denver can do it in the NBA, both Denver and the UConn Huskies in college basketball to do that, that'd be wild. But the Nuggets, that they have a legitimate chance to win it all again. I would still go with Boston. I really would. I still think Boston, they need to win it eventually. I mean, I'm not confident in Boston, but they have to win it eventually. They got such a good team. If they can get back Cleveland, which it looks like they will, they got to get Kristaps back. If they can get him back with their roster, it doesn't matter if it's the Thunder, it doesn't matter if it's the Nuggets, or if somehow the Timberwolves can come back. I think Boston has a great chance. Now, will they blow it? I mean, they've blown it so many times. But the Jays, they got to get one eventually, you would think. But you just never know. Dave Valensky says, is Denver going to be like the Celtics in Detroit? Was Michael Jordan Chicago Bulls back in the late 80s and early 90s to Minnesota right now? That's a very, very good comparison, because a lot of people talk about, teams that could get close but can never win. That is one of the most talked about things in sports. It's not just the team that wins all the time, or, wins multiple titles, kind of like Alabama in college football, or, UCLA back in the day in college basketball, or like UConn now, or like, Bill Russell back with the Celtics, or even like Michael Jordan. But people always talk about the teams that were so close but can never get over the hump. Well, that could be the case, because Denver is just better. Even though, again, really brief, it looked like Minnesota, at cracked the code. Overall, Denver's just a better team. And they proved that tonight, and they proved it in the last two games, and they proved it last year and most of the season. But they're just a better team than Minnesota. Minnesota's really good, and at times when they're on fire, when they're playing great, they can beat anybody. I mean, maybe Game 6 they can beat Denver. Maybe Game 7 they can beat Denver. You never know. Maybe they can find a way to come back in the series. I don't think so. Like I said, I didn't even predict that to happen. I thought Denver would win the series in 6, but you never know. All these teams at the top of the NBA are really good, but it takes a special team to be a cut above the rest, just a little bit above the pack. And it seems like Denver, no pun intended to the T-Wolves, but it just seems like they're a little bit ahead of the pack. They're just a little bit better. In Boston, I think their team is better than everybody in the East, but they just haven't consistently been able to prove that. And that's the problem. It doesn't matter how good you are in the regular season. I feel like that is one of the biggest talking points in sports as well, is how a team does in the regular season versus how a team does in the playoffs, because or like in the tournament, like in college basketball. Because you talk about the Miami Heat. Last year, the Miami Heat were the 8th seed. And Miami, a lot of people were fussing and complaining, they're not having a good year. They had to play in the play-in tournament. They were an 8th seed. But the fact Miami made it to the finals, they knocked off Boston, played Denver in the finals last year. Nobody complained. No Miami fan was saying we had a bad season at the end of the year. Now, they were during the regular season, but I mean, just say, for instance, we saw the season Boston had. If Boston lost in the first round, if they did, then no one would care. No one would be like, oh my goodness, Boston had the best record in the NBA and they won 60-something games and they had a better record by every other team in the league by like 8 games. But if they lost in the first round of the playoffs, no one would care. The only result that is going to make Boston Celtics fans happy this season is if Boston wins the entire thing. That regular season was nice, but at the end of the day, Nobody cares. You have to win it all. And see, Denver, they've done it. Like Denver, the Nuggets won it all last year. So a lot of people just automatically believe that they're going to be the favorite to do it again. And who can blame people for thinking that way? When you've already done something, when you've proved you can do something once, it makes a lot of people believe that you can do it again. I mean, it's just the way that it goes. If you can do something once, you can do it again. Even if all the pieces aren't the same. Denver's not the exact same team as last year. They lost a couple pieces from last year's team, but they've added a couple pieces to this year's team. It's relatively, the core is intact. They got the stars still, got most of the role players, and now they're on fire again. That's why there were some people, because I did do a Twitter poll after game 2 when Minnesota was up 2-0. I did a Twitter poll asking people if they thought Denver can come back and beat Minnesota in the series. And surprisingly, I think over 50% of the votes actually were yes, that they could. And why is that? Because Denver won it all last year. If Denver didn't win it all last year and they lost like in the second round, and I asked that question, even with the same team, same players, not as many people would have voted. Maybe a few would have said, I think they can come back. But for the most part, nobody would have voted yes. But it's because people respect Denver. That's why I like Alabama football with Nick Saban when they kept winning titles. Not every year, but they would win and then they would miss a year and then they would win another title the year after. I mean, they built up that repertoire. So it's like, even if Alabama maybe didn't look as good a certain season, or a lot of people thought, oh, maybe Alabama, some critics would be like they lose 2 or 3 games. Most people were like, nope, it's still Alabama. It's still Nick Saban. I mean, it's just the way that it goes. You have to build up the trust and respect of fans, especially people that really follow sports. And I feel like that's why Boston doesn't have, the respect Denver does. If Boston wins a title, that will change. More people will think Boston's good. More people will think that, the Jays are legit. They're great players. I mean, people think they're great players, but the respect for them will go way in the roof if they win a title. That's why Joel Embiid struggles to get the same level of respect from fans like Giannis does and Jokic, does, because Jokic and Giannis have won titles. Even though Giannis hasn't been able to win another one, and the Bucks have fallen short recently, people still think Giannis is an elite player. Jokic, because they won last year. It's just Embiid, the 76ers, I don't know if they're ever going to be built to win one with him, but that's why, he just doesn't have that same level of, respect from certain people. I mean, obviously, Sixers fans, they think he's an elite player. Most NBA fans think he's an elite player, but a lot of people are like, Embiid can't get it done in the playoffs. Well, it's also a team problem, and teams matter too. It can't just be your stars. You have to have the entire team working together if you're going to be able to win. I mean, it's not like it's volleyball or tennis or whatever, where it's like it's one, like you're the individual. Like if you lose a match in tennis or volleyball, that's on you, unless it's like a set of 2 people. Or like I think in volleyball there's more players on there, but like I think beach volleyball's 2, but like in regular volleyball there's more. But in certain sports, you get the idea, especially tennis. There's only one golf. Person hitting the golf ball, it's a singular person. It's like if Tiger Woods doesn't hit a hole in one, that's because Tiger Woods didn't hit a hole in one. Nobody else is to blame. It's just the way it works. On a basketball team, Donovan Mitchell, Joel Embiid, Jason Tatum, doesn't matter who it is, can have 50 points, but if the rest of the team lets them down, it's just kind of hard to blame that player. It's kind of hard to blame that individual who scored 50 and say, well, he should have scored 60. It's like, well, if this person had scored more, if this teammate had scored more as well to help that individual, maybe they would have won anyway. That's kind of the point. That's why, as great as Jokic is, and that's why with Jokic, he's a special talent, special player, because of the fact he is kind of the, the beneficiary of them winning with all the assists that he makes. Like his teammates do help him out, but he's the reason that they score a lot of the times, because he gets some open shots. Not always. I mean, Jamal Murray can score on his own, but like KCP, Gordon, Porter Jr., most of the time when they score, it's off a pass. Now, they can score on their own every now and then, but a lot of times it's off a pass. So Jokic getting those guys open and they cash in, I mean, his teammates are helping him out, but he's also helping them. But a lot of guys, Joel Embiid, he kind of needs his teammates to step up because, I mean, he's not Jokic. He's not an elite of a passer. So he's not going to have 15 assists in a game like Jokic can. So even though Embiid might have 40, you know, if his teammates struggle, I mean, yeah, it's on his teammates, but Embiid also can't set him up. So it's just the way that it is. Sports Talk with Austin says they wrote us off, but we didn't write back. 3-2, go Nuggets. Yeah, Austin, I appreciate you for stopping by, but yes, I mean, it's awesome for Denver. I mean, a lot of people wrote Nuggets off. I didn't. I was concerned. I was very, very concerned. I was like, I think there's a legitimate shot that they lose the series. But I wasn't like they're done. If they had gone down 3-0, I'm like, yeah, I think they might be finished. But it was 2-0. I was very concerned. And yeah, the series was going to Minnesota. And it's like being on the road. But Denver is such a good team. I thought that they were still capable. But I do agree with your sentiment, Austin. A lot of people did write off Denver, but definitely still a lot of people thought that they had a shot. But I'm very happy for you, Austin. Know you love those Nuggets. Won it all last year. Maybe they can do it again. Boston's going to make it tough on the Thunder. Minnesota's made it tough in those first 2 games. So it's not a guarantee the Nuggets win it all again, but very happy for you, man. Jackson says, congratulations to the Denver Nuggets on an amazing victory in Game 5. Yeah, I mean, I know you wanted Minnesota to come back, Jackson, to make it interesting. And plus, you're wanting a Thunder Timberwolves Western Conference final, which would be really cool for 2 franchises that have struggled, and plus small market teams. But yeah, it does like the ship has sailed for Minnesota. Not done yet. I mean, you can't ever write them off. They're only down 3-2. If they can win the last 2 games, it's still in the series, but it just isn't likely. Sports Talk with Austin, as our great head coach said, a heart of champions. Yeah, I mean, you have to have that DNA. You have to have the DNA and ability to be like, you know what, we played bad, but we can regroup. And like I said, that's what makes the NBA playoffs different. If the NBA playoffs were set up like March Madness, then Denver would have been out. And people would be like, oh, Denver's no good. Well, you know what? Denver had a bad game. They had a bad game 1. But the NBA playoffs are 7 games. So even if you have a first couple games you play poorly, you can still turn it back around. That's what Denver did. But that's why March Madness is so tough, because one game that you play poorly, you can be the greatest team in college basketball by a mile, but just have a bad game where every player's throwing up a bunch of bricks and you can't win. So it's wild. But the NBA playoffs, it's set up to, give teams multiple chances to win a series. And luckily for Denver, that's the system in the NBA, because if not, they'd have been eliminated. But congrats to the Knicks tonight. Congrats to the Nuggets. Appreciate everybody for being here tonight. If you like the stream down below. Really helps out the channel, helps get the stream out to more people so they can check out my content here at Only Talk Sports. I really appreciate all your guys' support tonight. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Share the stream out on social media. It definitely helps out the channel a lot. And I appreciate, most importantly, all your guys' support. You guys have been amazing. It was a fantastic stream tonight. A really great game. Had a blast. Until the end, it was a blowout, but it was still a lot of fun. Dave says, what's up to Jackson? Jackson says, Sports Talk with Austin. Who will you pull for if it's the Nuggets and the Thunder? That's a good question. Also, shout out to KCP. Chris Brown balled out, of course, 3-time MVP as well. Christian Brown. I don't know who Austin's going to root for in that scenario. I would probably say the Nuggets, because he really likes the Nuggets, but you never know there. But again, appreciate everybody for being here tonight. Thanks, Austin, Jackson, Sonny Verma, Dave Valensky, and everybody else that showed up tonight. RC as well. But it was a lot of fun tonight, and I'll be back for more live streams in the future when possible, because, there's a lot of stuff going on, but I will be back for more live streams when I'm able to. But thanks so much for being here, everybody, tonight. It was a lot of fun, and the NBA playoffs is going to get more and more interesting as we go on further to the Eastern and Western Conference Finals and then the finals themselves. But we're still in the second round. A lot of great games on the horizon, and I will be back for some more live streams, but it's going to be a blast regardless to see who ends up winning the 2024 title in the NBA. But appreciate everybody for being here. Congrats to the Denver Nuggets. Thanks for being here, everybody.